All right, everybody, we're ready to get started here, please. Have a seat, and council, we're ready to go. Welcome to the May 23rd, 2023, 7:52 City Council meeting. We do have a quorum, so I'll call this meeting to order. Would you please join me in a moment of silence? And the pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. City Clerk, would you please read the rules to speak?
Yes, sir. Individuals wishing to speak on agenda items must complete a sign-up card prior to the item being introduced. Those wishing to speak on quasi-judicial public hearings must complete a sign-up card and sign the oath. Sign-up and oath cards are available on the table. Individuals wishing to speak on non-agenda items may do so under petitions from the public present. This opportunity is offered twice in the meeting, and individuals may speak at either the first or second petitions, but not both. No sign-up card is required. Citizens shall not comment on any issue more than once during the meeting. All comments except petitions and requests must address a pending issue, and citizens will be given 3 minutes to speak on all items. Citizens wishing to speak on the consent agenda must submit a sign-up card identifying the items of interest. Each speaker shall be limited to 3 minutes to speak on the entire consent agenda. All sign-up cards and exhibits being submitted to City Council shall be placed in the box on the table.
Thank you so much. Council, I need a motion to approve the minutes of the regular City Council meeting on February 28, 2023.
So moved. Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Opposed? Minutes are accepted. City Manager.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and City Council. Before we get to the agenda, the City Attorney would like to add an item.
Yes, Council, I'd like to add an item under my report, and that is with regard to the City of Titusville versus Speak Up. I'd like to add an agenda item to discuss with you having a executive session on that litigation. So I'd like to add that to my report.
We need a motion?
Yes.
Hold on one second.
Or anywhere on the agenda you'd like to handle that.
All right, I'm not sure how you want to word that, but Member Stokoe, do you have a motion?
Motion to add the agenda item to discuss an executive session under City Attorney's report.
Somebody give me a so moved.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say yes. Yes. Opposed? City Attorney, you want to deal with the point of order, or are we moving forward?
Moving the agenda is all we're doing. We're going to take cards on that item now that it's been added to the agenda.
Okay, well, I have a card. I have a speaking card, if there's anything new.
And we'll honor that card under my report.
That's the card you use.
You did auto card when you made the motion.
Stan, you'll always get a chance to speak. All right, kind of forget where I was now. City Manager.
On to boards and commissions. This is item 6A, the Titusville Housing Authority. Regular members Billy Fitzgerald, June Hudson, and Laura Ward have expressed their willingness and desire to continue to serve on this board, this authority, and request a reappointment for a 4-year term to expire on 31 May 2027. There are currently no other applications on file. The members are appointed by the mayor and approved by the City Council. In addition, staff is requesting Council accept the resignation of Titusville Housing Authority Commissioner Shirley Watson with an unexpired term to expire on 31 May 2024. The resignation was effective on 12 May 2023.
All right, with that, I obviously can't make a motion from here. Do I just simply put the names and someone else makes that motion, or do I move the gavel? Since it's the mayor's appointment.
Correct. Is that, and I can pull up the agenda item, is that in the agenda item already, or are you going to make the appointment tonight?
Well, I would assume we're reappointing the 3 members, and I need to appoint them, and then the council votes on them. So what would the procedure be for that?
Yes, sir. You're not going to ask for a motion to appoint. You're just going to say that you're appointee.
Okay,
And then they will have a motion.
okay, perfect.
Someone else will have to make the motion to approve that.
Okay, then I would like to reappoint
We have a
members.
card.
I'm sorry?
We have a card.
Okay, go ahead.
Stan Johnston.
Am I allowed to come up this time? On item 6A, Titusville Authority, Housing Authority, is that I noticed that you're doing some reappointments and so forth. And it sounds like accepting somebody new, and it's not shown on this agenda item. And I object to that, but when I submitted my card, I said approval of this because I certainly approve of what you're doing to do this. However, it seemed that it would have been appropriate to this other person, whoever she is, would have been on this agenda item. The concern I have, especially when I'm speaking here, is that you're fulfilling the needs of the THA, but you have not fulfilled the need of the planning and zoning for, I think it's been at least 3 months, 4 months, something forth like that. And I have put my application in, and it's been accepted, but you're not responding to it because you're withholding it until you get somebody else, obviously because you're blacklisting me. The city of Titusville is blacklisting my application as a professional engineer, someone who was employed by the city, retired in 2008 as a professional engineer and at that time I was a registered land surveyor. Highest pay that in my salary bracket I could possibly be paid. And yes, you guys have blacklisted me. I want these people to know that something's going on here. So I'm not going to take any more of your time, but think about what you're doing. There's too much dishonesty in this government. Thank you.
Boards, so again, I go back to, I want to reappoint Billy Fitzgerald, June Hudson, and Laura Ward.
I make the motion to approve the mayor's appointment.
Second.
I have a motion from Member Cole, a second from Member Nelson. Roll call vote.
Member Cole.
Yes.
Member Nelson.
Yes.
Mayor Diesel.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Robinson.
Yes.
Member Stokel.
Yes.
And there was a second thing we needed to do on that one.
Yes, sir. Accept the resignation of Commissioner Shirley Watson.
Can I get a motion? Nope. Do we need a card? No, we don't need a card on that. We already had that. Go ahead.
Move to accept the resignation of Titusville Housing Authority Commissioner Shirley Watson with regrets.
Second.
Motion from Member Nelson, second from Member Cole. Roll call vote.
Member Nelson. Yes. Mayor Diesel.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Robinson.
Yes.
Member Stokel.
Yes.
And Member Cole.
Yes.
All right. So, it passes, and we have city manager.
On to item 6B, which is the Titusville Environmental Commission leave of absence. Titusville Environmental Commission regular member Michael Myjack has requested a leave of absence from the Titusville Environmental Commission meetings during the months of July, August, and September, and October 2023. Please see attached email from Mr. Myjack. Additionally, staff received a request from Mr. Yant yesterday that will come to you at your next meeting. He is also requesting a leave of absence June, July, and August, but that is not tonight. I'm just giving you that as an FYI that you have another leave of absence request coming.
I guess for discussion, any cards?
Yes, one card. Stan Johnston.
Thank you for recognizing me. I'm Stan Johnston, 50-year resident of West Titusville. And I didn't know it was in West Titusville, but I am now.
I didn't hear.
So Mr. Myjack is very essential. He's doing a heavy-duty job of working to to help our environment and protect it. And it would be very important for you to accept his leave of absence. He's a very hard worker, and we need him. So please accept his leave of absence, and please support the TEC. They need your support, and apparently you're not really giving them the TEC your support. It's, as can be shown for what happened at the last meeting when we had the Clean Water Act, what people spoke. You didn't do it right. Thank you.
Thank you, Stan. I guess any comment or anything from Vice Mayor Robinson?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay. I guess I do have a question. Do we have a second request coming for a leave of absence? Will that cause us any problems with quorum?
We received that yesterday, and I honestly don't know.
And I'm certainly not looking to put the no on anybody, but it is a concern that if we have a couple that are out for several months over the summer, I wonder if that affects them. We could probably look at that later. Go ahead. Member Nelson.
I share your concern. I mean, Mike has done a great job, and he's been there for how many years? As long as we've been here.
Yeah, I meet with him often.
Yeah. And he's always taken these months off during the summer. I was hoping he'd be here, but he left. But I am concerned because we have a number of projects coming in, and apparently we're going to be missing 2 people. He's always taken this off. It's never been a problem. But I think of it as more of a problem now because of the number of projects coming through.
Well, I don't know that I would have seen it as significant a problem, except now apparently we have another one coming up next. Member Stokel.
Yeah, that was my question because I got the other request. So it looks like they'll overlap July and August. So I think Mr. Myjax he'll be here for June, but Mr. Yount will not. So I think that will, and I don't know, I think we have 2 alternates for that board. And I don't know if they're consistently showing up. And they meet once a month. Is that correct? Once a month. So it'd be 2 meetings, July and August, where we would potentially not have a quorum.
Possibly. A lot
Yes.
depends on if we have the alternates. I would probably say that we can move forward with the first one and see how that affects us with the second one.
Yeah, and I want to say, I know that board is pretty active, so I feel like their alternates are probably showing up. But again, I think that would be our issue is July and August meetings.
So
with
Member
potential-
Stokel, do you have a motion perhaps?
Yes, I move to approve the leave of absence request for member Michael Myjack.
I'll second that with some trepidation.
I think it's something to look at, because if let's just say we get one more, and we've got 3 who are taking the summer off. But right now, we don't, and so let's just move forward with that. I have the motion from Member Stokel, the second from Member Nelson. Roll call vote.
Mayor Diesel?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Robinson?
Yes.
Member Stokel?
Yes.
Member Cole?
Yes.
Member Nelson?
Yes.
Passes unanimously, and we'll consider what we do down the road and check into the alternates. City Manager.
On to petitions and requests of the public, non-agenda items.
Petitions and requests. Hi, how are you?
Good evening. My name is Christian Moscoso, and I live in 3031 Demerit Drive, and I'm here representing the Royal Oak residents. Many of them are here wearing blue tonight. I'm a local pastor, and as such, I believe it to be my responsibility to stand for those who are in the margins and care for the vulnerable. I personally am involved in at least 3 local initiatives, such as volunteering for a program that seeks to mentor at-risk youth in our local high schools. I'm currently mentoring a young man whose family history is plagued with substance abuse and all the collateral damage that comes with it. I'm also part of a group seeking to help resettle a family of refugees in our area. And I'm starting the process to volunteer in the local jail to teach and visit the inmates on a weekly basis. The context of all these initiatives is the city of Titusville and its surroundings. The reason I'm saying this is not because I want to toot my own horn, but to help you see that the people here wearing blue are people who actually care deeply about our community and those that live in it. We are a group of concerned citizens asking for transparency in a process that seems very muddled up until now, that will have real consequences, real life consequences for our neighborhood. We are not here to oppose progress, nor to hinder the care of a vulnerable portion of our population. I am sure most of you are aware that good intentions are often not enough to help the vulnerable, but much damage has been done when good intentions are not coupled with good planning and execution. So as a resident of Royal Oak, I have some questions about the development of Apollo Gardens and Fox Point that I would like you to consider tonight. My first question to you is this: do you truly believe that this project, or do you truly believe this project to be a multifamily housing project when all the apartments are 1 bedroom and 1 bath? I'm speaking of Apollo Gardens. That, coupled with the fact that CAR4, in its documentation, clearly states that the demographic they are seeking to serve are high utilizers of public behavioral health systems. And they state in the same document that Circles of Care will provide on-site behavioral health care services, and the Brevard Health Alliance will provide on-site primary health care. So my question to you is, does this really sound like multi-family housing to you? Because it sounds very institutional to me, a lot more institutional than residential. So let me ask you, do you truly believe this to be a multifamily housing project? And if this on-site medical and behavior services are part of the plan, shouldn't that require a CUP? My second question to you is that the desire is to help the high consumer population comprised of substance abusers and mental health patients, as it's clearly stated once again in Apollo Gardens and Fox Point documents that we have made available for you guys to peruse. Is this truly a good location for the patients? Is it truly helpful to send 84 patients, if not 184, if you count Fox Points, to a location that is practically a food desert? Does it really help the vulnerable to confine them to a location with no public transportation, transportation or access to the services that they so desperately need? Is our law enforcement prepared to deal with the disruptions that come with this type of program? I often work out of Starbucks, and I often see people with obvious mental health disabilities who also happen to be homeless, and they disrupt the location often, and to the point that I've had to intervene myself in order to defend 2 young ladies that were in danger of being hurt. My question then, as I close this evening, is, as our local elected leaders and public servants, is this truly, to the best of your knowledge, a project that benefits the city of Titusville? Will it actually benefit the local community? And ultimately, and most importantly, will this project ultimately truly benefit the very demographic that it's seeking to help? Thank you for your time.
Hold up right there. Before we go further and further into this, because I think you guys talked while I was in Europe and came back to, and you're here, and I appreciate that. I don't know that we go to Brad, city manager, or who, but tell me what our role with council is, what it could be, what might get us involved. I think that would be the explanation we need to have for everybody. So let me just be quiet and hear what that's going to say.
So the city did receive an application for a site plan called Apollo Gardens at a location on Demerit. It's still in review. We have not completed our first review of that site plan. We believe it's going to be very quick. The applicant also requested what's called a expedited review as an affordable housing project, and so we're processing that request as well. We also received information related to that request for being considered an affordable housing project, some information they submitted to the state. So we're reviewing that as well against what the state received to see if it is consistent with our zoning and if they meet all the other requirements. But as far as I understand, based on what I have so far, it is consistent with the existing zoning on the property as a multifamily development. Whether it's income restricted or not, we currently consider it to be a multifamily development. Again, we're still reviewing it. And if that case, it would not come before you for a public hearing because the zoning would allow that use.
Okay, so with that, the next question would be, let's just say, and I'm learning this when you're learning this, let's just say that this is properly zoned, it never comes before us because it's nothing we have any say on. Are there any other steps that this group could take and say this is a problem?
So because they're still going through the process, there may be design issues that they have to deal with, and they'll have to go through whatever process that is if they can't meet any of our design requirements. If it is not consistent with our zoning, then we'll have to speak with them about the next step to see what the process is that will allow what they're trying to propose. If not, it'll be prohibited. But currently what I have right now, what we've seen is that it's a multifamily development, which is a permitted use in that zoning. So at this current stage, we do not anticipate it having to go before you for a review and if this needs, and the only thing I could see is based on the application, since it's considered to be a complete application for review, we have to review it based on the code requirements that are in existence now. So it's not something that the code can be changed retroactively to affect this project if it is consistent with the current code.
So things could change possibly with your research. I'm not saying it will, I'm not saying it won't. But if you were looking at it right now, you would say that's not something that will ever come before us.
Correct.
Member Stokel.
Okay, I want to clarify a little bit too. So the first I heard about this was from emails I received and wondered the same thing. This didn't come before council. Why wouldn't it? So anytime something comes before council is if they are trying to change a land use or current zoning. So as Brad mentioned, this piece of property is already zoned multifamily. So if somebody wants to come in and build something that's already zoned a certain way, it does not go before us. So currently right now, with what can happen on that property is multifamily. So I want to talk about two things. So that's the first one. I think one concern that I probably have heard is, let's say they just do multifamily. There's still a concern, I think, about access of the road, traffic. And I think, Brad, correct me if I'm wrong, that will happen in the design phase. If we will look at the infrastructure, is it appropriate to have one entrance and exit? Would they be required to do two?
Yes, so they were still reviewing it to make sure it's consistent with the land development regulations, including access management.
Okay, so if that is an issue, it would be caught by staff at that point, according to our current regulations. So I think that's one issue, is knowing what the current zoning is right now. I think the second issue I'm hearing is use, which is whether or not this will truly be multifamily, or what I'm hearing is there may be some concern that it sounds like it may be transitional housing. And if that's the case, Brad, what would happen at that point? If it's not multifamily and they're not renting out apartments for, a certain period of time and it's more transitional, what does that look like?
So whatever they're proposing would have to review it consistent with the permitted uses and limited uses and any other public hearing required uses that are listed in that zoning district in our code. So if it's something, they have an additional use on there in addition to a multifamily development, for example, we'll have to review it to see if it's consistent with that zoning. And if it is, they have to go through a special process to have to go through that. If it's prohibited, it would not be allowed.
Okay, so depending on the use, it may be allowed. It may go through the conditional use permit, which would come before council for us to see. It's a challenging situation because I know you guys are desiring transparency. And we're dealing with those two different things. It's already zoned multifamily, and there are certain things that are allowed to happen with multifamily that we cannot prohibit.
Yeah, that's precisely my question, because with the on-site behavioral health and care services, I mean, that's where my question comes, because that does not sound like multifamily. And so that's precisely why I'm bringing it up before you guys, because I do have concerns about that.
And Brad, can you clarify, I think in our meeting you explained there's a difference between on-site services versus public services?
So, yeah, we did question whether any of the services are going to be provided to the residents there, depending on what that service is too. So it's going to be open to the public. That starts opening up the question as to whether this is a different type of use that's not really consistent with a residential use, strictly residential use in that zoning district. Then it just leads into, well, maybe it's not appropriate in that zoning district. So that's what we're just exploring. We're reviewing it still in our process. Just so you know, that based on the information I have right now, what we've got, I mean, this looks like a bona fide multifamily development. It's just income
But
restricted.
you do have
And they
this
may
document, right? Excuse me. I'm sorry.
Hold up, let him finish.
So there may be some services that the owner of the property will provide to residents there Depending on what those services are, we'll review it to see if it's consistent with the zoning. But if it's just basically just,
Income.
yeah, if they're providing information to them, to the residents there and how to do certain applications, whatever that might be, and it's not medical related, it's not something that is not inconsistent with that zoning.
And say to me again, sir, what you think it's going to be. Obviously, talking about multifamily, you have some concerns because you have some information or, I don't know, appearance or something.
This is a document that comes from them where it specifically states that they will provide on-site behavioral and care services. Brevard Health Alliance will provide on-site primary health care services. And
Stop. On-site care, Brad, help me with that. Does that change anything?
I don't know. That's something we're still
Well,
exploring. And we're still exploring that. That's why we're still doing this review.
so
We haven't
I
completed.
guess kind of what, I hate to do this, but it's kind of a football term in defense, read and react. Right now, you have a read that perhaps Brad and the gang's going to pay attention to. But what they're seeing right now is multi-use, and that wouldn't come in front of us. Now, if that changes, then it could come in front of us. Okay. That's my best research so far. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Bill Ballant, 2756 Demerit Drive, and this segues perfectly, I think. I am here to state my objection to the proposal to construct Apollo Gardens at 2727 Demerit Drive. Does it make sense to place in the middle of a well-established residential community a treatment facility designed as supportive housing for adults with serious mental illness and substance abuse? Residents would include drug addicts as young as 16 years old and people suffering from severe and potentially dangerous psychiatric disorders. Some very troubling unintended consequences could occur from having this marginalized population living next door to us. I will focus my objections on the inherent dangers presented by those residents addicted to narcotics. According to data from Willow Springs Recovery, statistics on addiction treatment are not very promising. The relapse rate for substance use disorders is estimated to be between 40 and 60%. Given the difficulties faced by patients and professionals participating in the rehab process, there would likely be many residents who fall out of compliance with their treatment plans. Since Apollo Gardens would not be a lockdown facility, it could mean addicts would be at liberty to wander at will through our community without supervision. That could lead to a potential nightmare scenario: public drug use and intoxication, drug dealing, drug overdoses, increased criminal activity, home invasions, possible gun violence. Is this a fair proposition to impose upon homeowners who in some cases have been paying property taxes for over 50 years? The negative impact upon our safety and security would be impossible to measure. How would first responders and our already overburdened police force manage to keep up with increased demand for their services? How long is someone's grandma going to have to wait for help when someone is tapping on her windows at 4 o'clock in the morning, which is very likely to happen with this population? Common sense should tell us the answers to these questions would be very alarming, and they are. As much as the presence of drug addicts would pose a threat to the safety of our community, so would the presence of those residents diagnosed with schizophrenia, bipolar, and other severe psychiatric disorders. When patients stop taking their meds against medical advice, which they often do, their illness grows more acute and behavior becomes more erratic. When symptoms such as increased anxiety, paranoia, hallucinations, and debilitating delusions become overwhelming, they act out in ways that potentially would endanger our community. I believe a comprehensive...
Get the last sentence in there for me.
I believe a comprehensive impact study should be conducted and further review of zoning codes and CUP approval is necessary. Multifamily zoning does not appear sufficient to approve this project. A more suitable location would better serve the Titusville community. Addendum: all my objections apply equally to the proposal to build Fox Point at 2800 Barna.
Thank you.
So we're 160, 170 people. Welcome.
Hello, my name is Billy Joe Clayton. I live at 2898 Demerit Drive. I've lived there with my husband for over 20 years. It's a small private road that has a gate at the end of it that connects over to the other Demerit Road with a separate easement that Apollo Gardens has bought already to use as their only entry. My concern is several years ago, our stormwater drainage system at Harrison Road, our only entrance, collapsed due to the over runoff from the golf course all the time and things like that. It was a very large project for the city and for the homeowners and very expensive. My concern is the stormwater drainage system access to this property. We do not want to give you access to this property because we have had so many problems with our own stormwater drainage system, from that access pipe collapsing up front to our manholes down near my place, the southern end of the building, are starting to sink. So the city comes and puts asphalt over them. We have copper piping. We have old drainage systems. Our building's going to be 50 years old next year. It's an established, mature community that was built for Royal Oak Golf Course. So we do not want to give you access to that stormwater drainage system. We're already suffering with impact on our plumbing. You can ask your city workers for the water. We have drain access, covers at the end of our driveways for them to access our pipes and everything. They're aging, they're collapsing, they're falling in. Inside our buildings, the copper pipes, of course, are starting to fade. We're worried that all this construction, this development right in front of us, a 4-story development towering over our 2-story development, will impact our foundations, our water system, our electric, our emergency services, everything for our small community. Please take that into consideration when you consider this proposal. Thank you for your time.
Good evening. My name is Natasha Crosby, and my family and I have lived in Titusville for over 25 years. And this is our story. On April 29, 2021, city building official Steve Adams issued a vacate order that forced the removal of my family from their home. My husband and myself, the owners of the home, were just putting on a new roof and doing cleanup. We were also doing work inside the home. To be fair, we didn't have a permit because we didn't know we needed one. However, on the vacate order, Mr. Adams fixated on work done almost 30 years ago and wanted us to do things like tear down structural walls and rebuild them as little as 2 feet away from where they originally stood. And this is on a home that's been standing for 60 years. From having been on site himself, Mr. Adams would have known from the condition of the house that this was not a family that could afford to do even basic repairs, let alone have the financial means to tear down and rebuild walls. But rather than issuing corrective action that supported the unintentional offense, he threw the book at me and my family. Steve Adams forced the removal of an economically disadvantaged family of color from their home during the height of a national pandemic without just cause. We met with him and the planning department to request that the unpermitted work be removed from the vacate order so that we could fix the other issues and quickly return home. In response, he said that we had 3 options: sell the house, appear before the special magistrate, or do what he ordered us to do. There were no other choices. We reached out to Peggy Busaka, his supervisor at the time, but she refused to do anything about it, telling us that she cannot override the building official in his interpretation of the code. Meanwhile, my family remained homeless. Finally, we learned about the variance hearing, and on August 2021, the BAA unanimously granted us our variance. The problem we have with what happened is that Mr. Adams removed my family from their home as a first option, not as a last resort, and he actively worked to keep them from returning. This did not have to happen. Mr. Adams' actions were excessive, extreme, and unnecessary, and I point to 2 key pieces of evidence to support my statement. Number 1, the property was evaluated by a structural engineer who said that immediate evacuation was a bit extreme and, in his opinion, unnecessary. And number two, on September 29, 2021, the Board of Adjustment and Appeals granted us a variance and said that they were appalled that unpermitted work was listed as a primary statement on a vacate order. I'm standing in front of you now, 2 years later, because that time is what Mr. Adams' actions has stolen from our lives, and this is how long it has taken us to get back on our feet. My family was able to return home after 14 months. I will be sending you a transcript of my email with evidence supporting everything I've said. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for coming forward.
Hey guys, how you doing? I'm so sorry to hear what just happened right there. I wanted to step up.
Your name?
My name is Aaron Faison, 530 Loxley Court. I want to step up in support of Carrefour Homes. I understand the citizens' upset and anger because much of what they're asking for is clarification and understanding about what Carrefour Homes are. After speaking with some representative from Carrefour from last week, I understand what they're doing and I support the building of this structure here in the city of Titusville. We need something like that. There's a lot of fear that's going on right now. Unfortunately, our drug addicts and our schizophrenics and our people with mental health need a place to stay, and they need supportive services. See, understanding what supportive services is extremely important in this particular situation right now. Okay, it's not a row house. It's not a get well. These people sign a 1-year lease, so it's not transient housing. Okay, they pay rent to live there, and they're getting the much needed support services that they need. You see, here in North Brevard County, we have no wraparound services. Carrefour is bringing that to our community. Melbourne has a facility that the city of Melbourne raves about. They love their facility that Carrefour built for their residents, surrounded by homes that cost $450,000 apiece. $450,000 of homes surrounds a Carrefour property in Melbourne. Okay, it's called Heritage Oaks. They can look it up. Many of the residents that are here speaking today are comparing Carrefour's application to the state for their services versus what they submitted here for the city for building. And they're saying that they don't match. Well, they don't match because they're apples and oranges. Okay? So after speaking with the Carrefour representatives, I, Aaron, as a resident of this town, who has a brother who's schizophrenic, who doesn't take his medication, who doesn't tap on people's doors, who doesn't do the things that they're saying the schizophrenics do, I, Aaron Faison, who have family members who are drug addicts, who don't do the things that they're saying that they do, I support this facility because we need something in this town, in North Brevard, to care for these people. Now, what I do suggest happens, maybe if you guys have the power, contact Carrefour and contact the residents and have them talk so they can ease their residents' fears. But let me tell you that I support Carrefour. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor, and council members. I'm Jill Sterling of 3514 Nelson Place. I don't live near Demerit, but I'm speaking about both the intended Apollo Gardens and Fox Point properties. I understand that council and or staff were approached around June 2022 to approve these developments as multifamily construction on R3 zoned property. The city promptly responded with a couple letters. These came from Fox Point RFA. This is the city responding about having water access and sewer access or ability for septic. And these are dated June 22. So the city responded promptly. I'd like to turn these in, Exhibit A and B. At the same time, RFAs, and I plead that you go and look at the links to the RFAs to both of these facilities, apparently undisclosed to the city of Titusville, were making their way through the Florida housing approval process. And there's an excerpt here from Fox Point RFA submitted on July 11, 2022, they list their first prior use as high utilizers of Brevard Health Behavioral Health Services. The ME's priorities for high utilizer population. Behavioral health high utilizers are individuals who experience severe and persistent mental illness and or a co-occurring substance use disorder. The citizens are here to ensure City Council is now absorbing the real details of the intended use of both facilities. There is also my Exhibit D, also Fox Point RFA, a letter from the CEO of the Housing Authority of Brevard. Local residents have serious concerns, and residents at large like me in Titusville are becoming aware and concerned about these pilot facilities being built in the center of our predominantly single-family home neighborhoods. This letter, middle paragraph reads, "This proposed integration of health care and housing support for Brevard's high users of behavioral health services, homeless, as well as our low-income and homeless population represents a breakthrough in managed care for Brevard's highest risk population, and we applaud FHFC's initiative in taking this step." When I read breakthrough, I think novel concept. And these are listed as pilots. They reference being pilots. I realize there are a few other facilities. I've looked at them, and they are not the same as these.
How
May I
much more time do
continue?
you need? 30 more seconds or so?
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, 30 more seconds, go.
Anyway, we hope council will carefully read the RFAs. What we would like from our city leaders, and I was looking to planning and zoning, is to go back to the property owners and let them know initially in 2022, they did not disclose the nature of these facilities, both Apollo Gardens and Fox Point, when they brought them to staff and council in 2022. And we'd like this referred back to planning and zoning to assess proper zoning for these breakthrough novel concept pilot facilities that combine integrated health care and housing support. Our hope is that planning and zoning will assess and agree that this type of facility does not fit R3 zoning. We acknowledge the need for improved support for those with mental illness
Thank you very
struggling
much.
with addiction. May I
We're
continue?
we're done.
Okay,
So I got you. I appreciate it.
thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Vicki Conklin, 2920 Royal Oak Drive. I'd like to speak to Fox Point, which is an application y'all might not be aware of, and that would be adjacent to Apollo Gardens. It's at 2800 Barna. It's for 80 units. The developer is Matthew Reiger. And the city, Mr. Brett Parrish, signed on that actually 1 year ago today to say that it met the zoning of multifamily. It would be adjacent to Apollo Gardens, and so in total, we'd have 164 of these specialized units. I'd like to tell you what it would be about. It's permanent supportive housing for high utilizers of public behavioral health systems. It's the tenant participation is voluntary. They don't have to agree to anything except to live there. So they don't have to have services or medications, I suppose. It is a pilot program as described in their application to the state. It's a 3-year pilot program to serve persons with serious mental illness. Most tenants have received a comprehensive diagnosis prior to entering the program. The lead housing coordinator would assist with oversight of the discharge planning for individuals from the state mental health facilities to community housing. And I'm reading you from the proposal that they've made to the state. And the assistance with the medication management would be through reminders and inquiries. I don't know, I'm a nurse. I don't know that that kind of compliance is always assured with inquiries or gentle reminders, especially for psychiatric patients. The Brevard Health Alliance could install a clinic in the clubhouse, and they have done this at Heritage Park is really the name of it, sir. It's Heritage Park in Melbourne, and they have actually a clinic in their clubhouse. That to us then becomes more available for the public and it becomes more medical rather than multifamily housing as such. So does this make sense to put this in the middle of a neighborhood? So if Mr. Reiger has not submitted his 143-page application in which he clearly states these are the tenants that we will have at Fox Point, just as Car 4 submitted in their application, sir, these are the tenants that we will have at Apollo Gardens. So I'm not sure what you were told, but we've read 132 pages. We've read 143 pages of their applications to the Housing Commission where they're getting their money from. So my question is that if they have not submitted those documents to you to state their real intent of what their real tenants would be, why, and shouldn't that be a reason for denial if they haven't been full disclosure? And secondly, if staff has not read these documents to know what the real intent is, why not? So I think this is an existential dilemma. It's a dilemma for the city, but it's especially a dilemma for the stakeholders, for the people who have their biggest investment in their lives as their homes. And to put 164 questionable area in the middle of a small subdivision doesn't seem to make sense to us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Mary Jetta. I live at 4465 Dickens Avenue in Titusville, Florida. It's been about 2 years since my family has returned home. My question to you, the City Council, is this: why were we made to leave in the first place? Code enforcement was allowed into our home on April 29, 2021 because of an initial complaint of trash in the yard. And the next thing I know, the City Council the City of Titusville is telling my family that we have 24 hours to vacate the property. I later found out that the reason we had to leave is because Steve Adams said that we had to so-called unpermitted work on the property from almost 30 years ago. And he wanted this corrected before we were allowed to return home. It is Steve Adams who told us to leave, and Steve Adams who told us that we could seek shelter at the Harry T. Moore Center. Never mind that my special needs son, who was 8 at the time, had just had emergency surgery 2 weeks ago. Apparently, we did not pull a permit and we were going to be taught a lesson. What bothers me is that at the height of my desperation, when my kids couldn't go to school because they had no stable address and my mother was spending her life savings on motels, I reached out to several members of the City Council pleading for your intervention and allowing us to return home. When Ms. Stokel made inquiries, Peggy Busaka, Mr. Adams' supervisor, responded by defending his decision to remove my family from their home indefinitely, even though it was 4 months later and the issues in questions were mostly resolved. Let me remind you that even after the Board of Appeals said that it was appalling to us to be removed from their home because of unpermitted work, Mr. Adams refused to allow us back home until all the inspections were passed. This kept us out of our home for over a year. And I wonder how many families have been removed from their home at the whim of a man with the power to do so. Mr. Adams used his power to hurt people. My mother had to deplete her savings, and I fell into credit card debt because we had now to concentrate on keeping a roof over our heads. My son, who had just had surgery at the time, was not able to rest, and we had to go on the road and survive the best way we knew how. We had to share small hotel rooms and questionable places. My children were not able to attend school and fell behind. They are now currently being tutored so they can catch up to their peers. My widowed mother started having heart problems shortly after we left home due to the stress and she had to eventually have heart surgery in October 2022. What I'm asking you, the City Council of Titusville, is this: check the power and authority of the city building official of Titusville, Florida. Because if he decides that he's going to go after a resident, there is not much that person can do to stop him. He has controlled the narrative with you, the City Council. He has directed his subordinates to act maliciously and has demonstrated that he is above the law because he is the law. What are you going to do about it?
Thank you. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Oh, please. Hi, I'm Elizabeth Baker, Augustine Drive, and that was disturbing. That was really disturbing. I'm here to actually talk about trash. On May 12th, I saw a social media post about some overstuffed dumpsters over behind, what is the street over there? I'm blanking out on it. Mariner Way. Mariner Way,
Okay.
over behind the Playland Brewing Company. And I went over there with full intent of cleaning it up myself. I saw these pictures, they were just overrun dumpsters. There was trash all on the ground everywhere. Obviously, the recycling hadn't been picked up, the dumpster hadn't been emptied. And I want to say, definitely thank you so much to the workers that came out there. They really went above and beyond. I was told by one of the Public Works gentlemen that they're actually not supposed to clean up around those dumpsters, that the only thing that they're supposed to do is come and pick the dumpster up and empty it, that they're actually not supposed to clean up anything on the ground, which I actually find pretty disturbing, being that that's public property. And now, we're hearing stories that code enforcement is being called on people's homes for litter, but yet the city doesn't seem to be able to handle their own litter. So, I do have a couple questions. One, is that actually accurate? Whose responsibility is to clean up the trash that ends up on the ground? Because it's going to happen. Wind, animals, when I got there was actually an ibis standing on top of it, eating the trash out of the dumpster. And, how many businesses are using the dumpster? And is there a way to assign those particular dumpsters to particular businesses so that they all aren't using one and ignoring the other three that are over there? Overall, this is a huge problem throughout our whole county, not just in Titusville. There is trash absolutely everywhere. I am picking up all the time. People are, concerned about having addicts in the area. Well, they're already here. I pick up needles all the time. I carry a sharps container with me constantly because I'm always picking them up. We have a major, major problem, and litter seems like a really trivial little thing, but this leads to major health impacts for our community.
I agree. Hold up one second. Kevin, can you comment a little bit on the, on some of our questions, especially the dumpsters that are behind businesses, et cetera?
Yeah, the commons are unique dumpsters because they are on public property. So we do clean those enclosures up. In a normal business setting, we do not. We pick up the dumpster. The property owner is responsible for putting their garbage in the dumpsters. But being that this is the commons, it is city property, we do clean up more there. To answer the other question, they share all the properties that abut the commons, share those two dumpster locations. So they pay for them. They're split amongst the properties by the ones that are adjacent. So the ones on the far north side have more Main Street properties as well onto them. So there's a couple of things there. Increasing their duration of pickup will, one, it'll take more dumpster away. Secondly, it adds cost to those businesses that we don't really control that factor because we're the provider of the service, so we can make a recommendation to the businesses.
Okay.
We can't really force them to get picked up more. But yeah, to answer the first question, we do clean up the commons dumpsters because they are public property. But in a normal case, the commercial properties are expected to clean up their own dumpster enclosures. These are unique in that they sit on public property servicing private businesses.
Okay. I pick up litter on commercial properties, and I just want to make one suggestion. I realize that locking a gate would be very difficult because of the amount of businesses that they use, but it would be really beneficial to put a gate on those cubbies so that any trash that does fall out of the dumpsters or is set next to them isn't so easily blown into the river or into the storm drains. Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, council members, mayor, vice mayor. My name is Pete Crosby, 542 Marion, Titusville. I'm here tonight to petition that the regulation allowing authority for a city official to remove a family from their home be reviewed and changed. As mentioned earlier by my wife, Natasha Crosby, Mr. Steve Adams, the city's building official, unjustly removed my family from the home they were living in because of unpermitted work that was completed over 30 years ago. My wife explained how we proved Mr. Adams wrong at the BAA hearing on August 29, 2022. However, what she did not have time to tell you is we also investigated other accuracies of Mr. Adams' other two demands that were on the vacate order. Concerning the structural issue, we consulted with the structural engineer, just as my wife mentioned, and he returned back and saying, quote, immediate evacuation was a bit extreme and, in my opinion, unnecessary. Regarding the electrical issue, a master electrician friend advised that that the issue of the incoming wire into the electrical panel was not a concern, and in fact, he has seen it approved many a times in other rough-in inspections. So not only was the fixation on unpermitted work not a valid reason to remove a family from their home, neither were the other two issues, meaning that Steve Adams caused my family to be homeless for over a year during a national pandemic just because he could. And this is not even the end of the story. After we passed the inspections at my mother-in-law's house, we resumed work on another house that we owned there, and this was permitted. Mr. Adams retaliated and continued to harass us by saying things like our windows, that again were over 10 years old, were unpermitted and wiring was not exposed, both of which were untrue statements. He took a personal interest in our efforts and appeared to coach his inspectors to amend their original inspections, which they were passing. Once again, we proved Mr. Adams wrong by showing the city that we already had a permit that the city approved over 10 years ago for these other windows. And then we submitted photographic evidence showing that 95% of the wiring was exposed. It was not until we retained legal assistance, so we had to go get a lawyer to finally get Mr. Adams to cease his pattern of continued harassment against me and my family in retaliation for losing the BAA hearing. In closing, every day when I drive around this beautiful city, when I see one of those white code enforcement trucks, a shiver goes up my spine. I can't help but wonder if some other family with limited means is being unjustly kicked out of their house like mine was. Council members, removing a family from their home is a serious issue, and the authority to do so should not rest in one person's hand. I'm asking that the regulations be reviewed and changed so that Steve Adams and others like him can no longer remove people from their homes because of his bias he may have toward them because they're not financially secure enough to fight back. And one last thing, as my wife did, we're going to send you a transcript of a copy email of our transcripts with evidence proving all of this that we're talking about.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. City Manager, obviously, a very concerning situation there, and I'm certainly not casting anything on any of our employees. I don't know the situation, but I'm going to request that I can get the summary and we can talk about the process.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Stan, there might be more. You're normally last.
Pardon? Billy, you want to stay here? Hear what I have to say? Oh, she's gone.
Okay.
Stan Johnson, 860 Poinsettia Avenue, West Titusville. I've been instructed as a member of armed forces, I was in the Navy, that what you're supposed to do is you praise people publicly, and if you have a problem with them, that you discipline in private. So I want all these people here to understand is that I have approached our city manager repeatedly on this matter, and he never returns my phone calls. He doesn't respond to my emails, nor does he, when I come up here and speak, he doesn't respond to that. So I hope, so publicly I'm saying instead of privately, in this issue about the false reports of the city of Titusville in the sewage leak that was in September, October, and November in 9 city streets, he's a liar, a cheat, a shyster, worthless. He's submitting false reports. I'm doing it publicly because I have no response privately. In a similar way as I approach all these council members, and Sarah Stokel, who is left, is that I've approached them through phone calls, emails, presentations in public. Plus, I have all these signs put on doors, many doors, of people who live on Indian River Avenue and throughout the city and so forth, and also even went to the Florida Today paper. In fact, the Florida Today paper published one of the photos of the sewer leaking in the streets of the city of Titusville. And you know what the city of Titusville does, our city manager? He lies and he cheats, and he goes ahead and he says, it never happened. It never happened. So what I'm saying is you guys are in trouble. You're supporting this guy who's nothing but a shyster. I'm ashamed of you. I'm really ashamed of you, and you're obviously, or you're afraid of the truth. The truth is, he's a liar.
We made that.
And, pardon?
You repeated that 4 times. Let's go.
Okay, I'll report. He's a liar and a cheat and a shyster. So I said it 5 times.
Yeah, you can.
6 times.
You want to be done, you
7
can sit
times,
down.
8 times. I've said it many times already at other meetings. And you don't appear to be listening to me what I'm saying because you're letting him still there. You're paying him. Recently, what you do, you got rid of what happened to our Sean Stauffer, who was Water Resources, who was also lying. He's gone. I don't know why he left. So you need to do something.
Thank you.
Well, I still have. Why does the buzzer go off before my time is up? I don't know. Maybe that's a warning. So anyhow, y'all didn't listen to the buzzer and the red lights flashing at the lift station. Thank you.
Hey, Maria Hilton. I understand that planning and zoning has code to meet and all of that. And as long as it meets those parameters, there's not much that can be done. And I understand that. And I've know way too much about coding now because I have searched a lot of it. And the one thing that I keep coming up, which is what you had mentioned as well, Sarah, was the conditional use permit. And the 2 that are in question would be the treatment facility, but the other one would also be the residential business use of a place, since this is zoned as a resident. My question is, what are you guys doing, or what are you guys required to do to assess if those are going to be needed or not? If you could answer, I don't know if he's allowed to.
I'm not quite sure what you're asking.
What are the parameters so if a conditional use permit is needed, what is the information that they're acquiring to see if that's needed?
Which project are we talking?
The Apollo Gardens.
Brad?
Let me see if I understand your question.
Okay.
So we're just evaluating the application to see if it's consistent with the code, including zoning. If we see any questions, we'll pose that to the applicant. If we have any questions, answer these questions and provide evidence that you're doing X that's consistent with the zoning. If it's not consistent, then, or if it is consistent but it requires an additional step, which might require a public hearing, then we'll inform the applicant that they have to go through that process before their site plan will be approved.
Okay, that answers it. So you're just asking them basically for information of what's going to be happening
Correct.
on
It
the
has to be
site.
to our satisfaction so we can determine it's consistent with the zoning.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then the next question I had was the BSA online is where most of us have been getting our information as to what's going on that property. It's made public knowledge. However, last Friday, all of that was removed from 2727 Demerit Drive, all the information for the inspections and everything. And so I emailed Eddie. I actually emailed somebody within the permitting, and he forwarded me to Eddie. I don't know his last name, but Eddie. And I haven't gotten anything back. And I thought maybe there was a parameter that said it didn't need to be posted, but it does need to be made public. So I was like, well, maybe they're trying. I don't know what they're doing. I don't know what's going on with that, to be honest. So I was just asking, where did that information go?
Go ahead, Brad.
So we became aware of our online permitting portal. We receive applications digitally through an online vendor that we use, BSNA. And we were made aware that the portal had left open access to draft department comments on site plans and permits and other things of that nature, which was not the intention of how that portal was supposed to be built. So it provided open access to draft comments, presents a challenge that in that certain details such as fire safety or any other plan comments that might not be available or should not be available to public were made available to public. So we reached out to the vendor, asked them to turn that off. It is comments that are complete as part of a site review are public record, so they can certainly be made and provided to the public at their request.
That's what I did, though, and I did not get those.
So if you made a public records request, we'll have a certain amount of time, reasonable amount of time to get that to you. So we'll have to take a look to see what that particular request is, and we'll provide whatever information that's available, that we can make available publicly.
Okay, cool. That's
Hold on one second. Member Stokel.
Yep, just to clarify, so the application with the final comments will still be online, or will people have to make a public records request for that?
No, so what happens on our online portal that we use, an applicant will submit an application, And so it then goes through a process where it's routed out to all the site reviewers of our site plan team. And so they make comments, but when they do, they make their draft comments as they're part of their review inside that system. What was happening is as they were making those comments, that stuff was being made available to the public, made open. So typically what happens is the applicant should be able to log in and be able to see these comments, especially as they're finalized. When we reached out to the vendor, they were able to tell us they told us that basically the only choice was to turn it off. So that's what we did. Now, we still make, yes, so to the public, basically. So these are draft comments that are generated and then put into a report when everything's finalized and provided to the applicant. And that is a public record. That report would then also be made available to the public if they request it. But the issue was that there are comments that were being made during the site review that are in draft form. They're still being worked on. And some of them are not technically supposed to be made available to the public. That's what was the issue was. So a final draft comments and a letter, we can make that to the public, and any other submittal that the applicant provides to us that is allowed to be made to the public, we'll make it available.
But the other information is still online on the website, aside from the draft comments, correct?
No, we've shut that off. So the public should not be able to see those draft comments through that online portal.
But what about the application and the other stuff that was there besides the draft comments?
I'd have to check on that, but I believe a lot of those, if you do have a login, you should be able to see the applications that were submitted to us. And if you're unable to see that, you can certainly make a records request and we'll provide that to us if it is allowed for us to make that available to the public.
Okay. My personal opinion, I would like to have as much transparency as we can have on there, but I see the concern with the draft comments. If they're not final, that could be an issue. But as much as we can make public, I would like to make public.
And I think that's what you are looking to do as well, Brad. You just had some issues with the company that made it hard to do that because of portal.
We're still working with the vendor on that, yes,
Yeah,
sir.
I'd like to see that remedied as well. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Christopher Hilton, 3100 Demerit Drive. Tonight I come to kind of just summarize what everyone out here has brought to the attention of the council. And if I'm aware correctly that the city council works for us, you're supposed to represent us. Tonight we have a room full of residents that are calling out for help. I feel like what they are doing with this development is coming in under a multifamily housing development. And then afterwards, they're just going to say, well, we have it built. We can just do whatever we want. And there's not going to be much recourse to a conditional use permit at that point. As well, there's many underlying safety issues that are not addressed. I would encourage the council, from a statement that I've heard before, consider beware that these developments coming in have financial gain. There's a reason why they're coming in and doing these developments. Please help us.
Thank you.
Good evening, council members. Kristen Lortie, Cocoa resident, and I'm a supporter of the right to clean water, strategic planning, and meaningful citizen participation throughout Brevard County. There's a couple of topics I'd like to touch on during my time. First of all, I'm not supportive of the executive session to determine the Speak Up Titusville. I wish that was being held in the open so that the public could attend. That will come later. I'm not sure if I'll be here at that time to say that. The second thing is that the summary judgment document for people who are interested in looking at it is available on the Speak Up Titusville Facebook group. And then they can watch the 5:30 recording if they wanted to see the additional citizen comments on that, which are at the end of that recording. Sometimes people may just watch this meeting and not the other. I would like to request your support on two items. two additional items. One of them is the citizen participation opportunities proposal that I emailed to you on May 10th. So that was on the last TEC day. I emailed you a citizen participation proposal, and I also emailed you strategic performance measures and targets that were science-based. These pertain to the city's own goals, and I want to make sure that I tie that back into the performance measures. So these proposals that were sent to you, emailed to you on May 10th, covered items that the city is actually already doing, already has goals regarding. And citizens made comments on that to say, we've reviewed your goals and here's the ideas that we have. Now, what citizens have done has been to recommend our proposal to the TEC. So it's following a route to the TEC. They have taken it up to review it and to align the items that are environmental in nature, and then also participation in nature that affect the TEC. The TEC is currently reviewing that. There has been some pushback from the city manager's office. This in the last meeting, it was relayed that this particular document, the performance measures, there's 55 total performance measures for the city, and it was framed to attendees and the advisory board that this is an internal document. This is an internal management tool. And what I would like to suggest to all the residents of the city of Titusville and Brevard and to the city council members, this is a very usable tool. The city measures this 4 times a year. They update it quarterly. They rate themselves on it, red, yellow, green. When they go through it, and this is something that we should all be familiar with. So the TEC is looking at aligning with it. I'm weighing in on citizen participation opportunities, including things like records and broadcasting of all the city meetings and making things available to the city. There are 17 citizen participation opportunities in my request that I request your support on, and request your support when the TEC brings this forward once they have completed reviewing it. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up. We've hit most all you, I think. Go ahead, come on up, yeah.
Do I have to sign one?
No.
I live on Demerit.
Come on up. Oh, there you go. Yeah, we gotta hear you.
Okay. I live on Demerit Drive, and
And
I've
your name
lived there since 1967.
Tell me your name for the record.
My name is Penny Riley.
Perfect.
3129 Demerit Drive. My concern with the Apollo situation is that we have young people moving into our neighborhood again. People who want to have their forever home there. People who are having children, young children. The big, tall building will look over into their backyards. There are widows there. I saw 3 children walking down Demerit Drive, looking at the woods day before yesterday. And I called them back. I said, don't go down there because you don't know what's going to be there. Children are curious. And if they go down there and the needles that the woman described from the dumpster are there, are those kids going to pick up those needles and do something with them? I'm very concerned about not my generation necessarily, but I'm concerned about the future generations. And these children, they're innocent. My friend here she lives my next door neighbor. She has 2 beautiful, beautiful young children. I would hate to see anything happen to those children because this situation was not resolved and they were allowed to come into our neighborhood. Somebody needs to rise up and fight against it. This is not right for Titusville. This is not the Titusville that I've learned to love for over 50 years. We were small, residential. We don't have a lot of water, so we didn't get a big growth like Cocoa, Rockledge, Melbourne. But why do people like Titusville? Why do they like to come to Titusville? because it likes the small, community-friendly atmosphere that's here. You can go in the street and you can go in the grocery store, you can talk to anybody. That's what people love about Titusville, and I wish we could keep it that way. Not that we don't need to grow. We do need to grow. I'm not against growth. I'm not against change. But I wanted the children to be protected. Your children, your grandchildren. We're the ones that are held responsible for their future. Thank you.
Thank you. Well said. Thank you. Next up, if you haven't spoken yet, you already, no, you can only speak once. And I don't think you've spoken, so come on up. No, him.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Councilman. Recently, I was disturbed to learn Josiah Gallo, speaking on behalf of the Republican Liberty Caucus of East Central Florida, representing Brevard. I'm a resident of Rockledge, but I was recently disturbed to learn that the city of Titusville has a sister city status with a city in China. There are only 9 sister cities with China in Florida.
Can I stop you there?
Yes, sir.
No, we don't. City manager or whoever wants to comment on that, sister city?
Yeah, we were a part of an organization back in 2002 that had sister city relationships. We terminated that in 2014.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
So I saw that in the newspaper too. I appreciated them researching that, but we don't have one.
My understanding from my research was that it is still displayed on several websites by the Chinese on their website that was passed by Mr. Scarborough.
Is there any website that we control that we can take it off of?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, because I wasn't aware of that at all until I saw it. And then I investigated it. They re-investigated it. And when was the year we got rid of that?
We're 2002 is the membership, and we terminated in 2014.
Okay, so things had changed, clearly.
Thank you very much,
So,
Mr. Mayor.
yes, sir.
I'm glad to see that we have stood up for freedom and
Yeah, we have,
American
absolutely.
values.
Things changed.
Yep. Thank you very much.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Mayor.
Tony Schiffalo, please forgive me for making this meeting even longer. I just wanted to speak after hearing all these people about the West Titusville neighborhood again that I spoke about earlier at the earlier meeting tonight. My neighborhood has got a lot of empty property, and we're expecting probably a lot of infill, and I'd like to see it be very controlled. And so I'm going to work on that with the CDBG grant, through the neighborhood vitalization and through the homeless and affordable task forces and through the humanitarian task force for social justice. I'm very involved in a lot of different angles and ways. I want to just say that in my neighborhood, which I love dearly, you know that. I come to you all the time.
Absolutely.
There's many, and I know these are derogatory terms. Please, Stell's not here. Please forgive me. There are many crackheads and drug addicts and streetwalkers and homeless people, and they're all part of our community. I still have my neighbors whose kids went to high school together and college, and they bring their kids to play together at grandpa's houses. We all coexist in this area. It's an open area. There's a lot of opportunity, a lot of streets, a lot of ways in and out. There's a lot of empty property that these people can go to that are essentially homeless. They can go and they can hide out or hang out under a shade tree or in a shady area for the hot part of the day. I don't know what they do when it rains like it did yesterday. But my neighborhood is, much as I love it, is much more appropriate for an Apollo Gardens than these people that have one way in and one way out and have 2-story houses that these 4-story buildings are going to look down on. And I imagine sometimes that when you're doing drugs, you might not want to watch TV. You might want to look out your window and see what's going on in the swimming pool down there at that house. Oh, look, there's that teenage girl. All kinds of things could happen. And I just really know, I know that your hands are tied in planning because of the code. And now we have this wonderful opportunity with a vision for Titusville for tomorrow that we can change. They're wanting to change the zoning. You had it happen to you before with a concrete factory. There was a recycling. There was nothing we could do to stop it. There's nothing we can do to stop this Apollo Gardens. There's got to be some changes, and we have to look at rezoning the whole city, that it fits us now and our need for native, natural habitat left intact, and to save from all this willy-nilly development that's going on. Think of the thousands of houses we're adding without any new infrastructure.
Thank you. Anybody else for petitions and requests?
Mayor, I do stand corrected. The termination of that sister city agreement was in 2002.
The termination was in 2002.
That's correct.
When did it start? Do you know?
I don't know.
2002? Okay. It's been a long time before I was even thinking about this. All right. Anybody else? I see none. City Manager, would you like to go forward with consent agenda?
On to consent agenda item. Council, are there any questions of staff for consent agenda items A through I? City Council, do you want to pull any agenda item or consent agenda items A through I?
No, I see none.
City Clerk, are there any cards for consent agenda items A through I?
Yes, we have 3 cards.
Mayor, I'd like to read the titles for the record.
Thank you.
Consent agenda item 8A, approve the purchase of Titusville Police Department vehicle to replace the loss of TPD vehicle 8835. Consent agenda item 8B, approve the Osprey programmable logic controller replacement. Consent agenda item 8C, approve the grant award from Jess Parrish Medical Foundation grant for emergency services equipment. Consent agenda item 8D, approve and appropriate forfeiture funds for National Night Out. Consent agenda item 8E, approve the cost-sharing funding interlocal agreement for the Commons and City Hall tree boxes. Consent agenda item 8F, approve the purchase for water reclamation facilities, the liquid aluminum sulfite annual contract. Consent agenda item 8G, approve work order for grant assistance with AECom. Consent agenda item 8H, approve the FY 2023 CBDG sidewalk improvement contract award. Consent agenda item 8I, approve the grant for the City of Titusville Stormwater Improvements Project with the state of Florida for $1.6 million.
Thank you very much. Call the cards, please.
We have Christopher Hilton for item A.
Item A. Who's A?
Well, Christopher Hilton, 3100 Demerit Drive. Upon reading this, I have a question. Why does it say replace the loss of a vehicle? If a vehicle is in an accident, totaled, something like that, I believe we would have insurance that would cover that. So why are we paying for a total loss vehicle?
It is an insurance claim.
Why are we still paying out $32,000?
We were reimbursed for the insurance claim.
Okay. So the city's not paying out money?
We're self-insured.
Okay. Was that an accident? Do you know? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Next card, please.
Kristen Lordy.
Which letter?
Kristen Lorty, Cocoa resident, and a interested party on the use of the consent agenda. So I'd like to start out by adding a comment onto the last gentleman's comment that he was asking a question. He saw an item on the consent agenda, and there's not enough detail to understand the self-insured and that it's being reimbursed and that the rest of the story. In order for him to have that information, or for any of us to have the information, what's required is that we have to contact the clerk's office, which is available as early as the Thursday before the meeting, and request the agenda packet. And if it's received timely, then you can look through the entire agenda pack in order to review that. It is not available online. So is particularly troublesome with the consent agenda. These are 9 items. Tonight, there are 9 items that are approved by consent agenda. The total authorizations exceed $2 million in authorizations. Now, it's not all spending. Many of it is grants, so I want to be fair to that. And I do want to commend the city manager. He does read the titles out loud, so at least there's some limited information in the titles that are read at the meeting. I do wish that he would add the dollar amount so people could hear the dollar amounts that are actually watching out in the on the video recording. But for the benefit of everyone, the definition of consent agenda items are items that are non-controversial and do not deviate from past precedent, and that is per the Attorney General, their definition. Now, when you have 9 items that are on a consent agenda, the smallest one being $7,000 and the largest one being a grant for $1,667,865, it's a lot to keep track of. And some citizens may want to indeed keep track of that, such as myself, and I was not able to get the information timely in order to review it. In addition, we are only allowed 3 minutes to comment on all the items per the last change in the citizen participation. So should I have actually been able to research it, look at the minutes without support from council, I have 3 minutes to comment on all these items. Now, there's an individual in Brevard County that I may have mentioned before that actually does do review. This is in Palm Bay, reviews the whole thing and provides council with the wisdom that he gets from his review, and they make adjustments to that. So I just find that a very commendable practice, but it was impossible really in Titusville unless someone writes up their comments in advance and then does the debrief in addition to that. So I'm troubled in general by the use of consent agenda because I feel like it is widely used, not just through Titusville, but throughout Brevard, and many of the items should actually be just, voted on, even if it's an assumed vote, they should still be voted on during typical city business. So I wanted to add those comments on that, not taking exception to any of the items in particular, but I also did not have the time to be able to review them in more detail to make a more detailed commentary.
Just curious, since you follow the county, how many do they normally have on their consent agenda? Because we're really pretty short, comparatively speaking. 9 is not a lot of research.
The county varies, and I have also criticized them. This is actually a lot, I don't know, seems like it's more for you tonight. I've also criticized them that they do significant city business, and so does Cocoa, under the consent agenda. So you're not alone in having a lot of items, but I denounce it everywhere.
I haven't seen the county. I don't pay that much attention to what they're doing, but I can tell you that school board is, goodness gracious, how many? 50, 60, 70? I mean, it's unbelievable. 90? So I get, I certainly understand what you're saying. I don't know that 9 is too many to be able to.
It's not necessarily the amount. You could have one that's for $10, $10 million, so it's just a number of, it's all relative. You have to look at what's in it. But many citizens don't even know what it is throughout Brevard County. They don't know what a consent agenda is, and they don't know how much city business is approved under the consent agenda. And so I like to illuminate that when possible.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Next card, please.
Stan Johnston.
Stan Johnson, 860 Poinsettia Avenue, West Titusville. I have two cards, 8B and 8I. I'm
8B?
8B and 8I. Both of them are neutral, or I don't neither. In other words, I'm not supporting them. I'm not objecting to them. Let's take the first one, 8B. 8B is under the jurisdiction of a notorious division that have recently lost their director, and I'm not sure why they lost him, but anyhow, it's notoriously closed doors, don't respond to phone calls. Gag orders on city employees. I know a number of city employees that have, for example.
Stop the clock. Are you talking about 8B? And
Yes, I am.
8I? Well, I didn't hear anything about gag orders here. So Osprey, programmable logic controller replacement. I don't even know what that means, so help me out.
Would you stop the clock, please?
Yeah, stop the clock. So, if you could explain to me at least briefly, well, I'll keep the clock stopped for a second.
Yes, sir.
What you hit B for. what you want to know about B or what you want to talk about B. Neutral doesn't tell me anything.
That what doesn't tell you anything?
Neutral doesn't tell me anything. You're either for it or against it. If you're
no.
neutral, I don't know why you'd stand up.
Okay, I said that neutral wasn't it, it's neither. I used the word neither. I replaced it neutral with neither.
All right, and then you
tomato.
Then you stopped talking about that and started talking about gag orders. So start the clock and help me with A and I. No, B and I.
B and I. So right now I'm talking about B.
All right, let me hear you talk about B.
B is under the jurisdiction of a notoriously dishonest organization within the city of Titusville that has gag orders on numerous employees that I don't know that we really trust them. Closed doors. I mean, I called one guy who was considered to be the in charge of water resources in the absence of our Sean Stauffer, and he just hung up on me. Didn't talk to me. So it's mysterious things are going. In other words, this water resources has a budget of not $1 million, $2 million, $3 million. It's just spending money out the yin yang. I mean, we're just talking about projects, 10 millions here, 10 million there, and so forth. And yet they can't answer the phone. They can't answer the phone.
Are you talking about I now, or are you having?
I'm talking about B. They don't respond to emails. They don't respond to when I come in public and talk about asking questions about what's going on.
30 seconds.
They're immune.
You might want to talk about
they seem to be immune to anything. The public. They're independent. They're independent from council, independent from anybody except Mr. Our shyster city manager. He says well, nothing's happening, like sewage spills and so forth. But I just sent you May the 10th about 10 items on water resources, sewage spills, secret sewer moratorium, and so forth.
Go ahead, thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Next card.
Can I have more time?
No more cards, no more time. All right, let's have a motion on consent agenda.
I make the motion
Go ahead.
to approve consent agenda.
Motion by Vice Mayor.
Second by me. But I would like to point out that I is funding 5 more lagoon projects, so that will bring us up to, 16, 17?
Projects?
16.
Yeah, I think 16, but I think that's good to point that out. Approve the grant agreement between the city of Titusville and the state of Florida.
That particular grant is for 11 additional projects.
11 more projects.
So we're at 22.
I got more than that going.
Someday people will realize that. Okay.
We'll count 22 plus. How about that?
And I have a second from Member Nelson. Roll call vote.
Okay, I just want to confirm you're approving consent A through I, correct?
Right, correct.
On the consent agenda, yeah.
Vice Mayor Robinson?
Yes.
Member Stokel?
Yes.
Member Cole?
Yes.
Member Nelson? Yes. Mayor Diesel?
Yes, the consent agenda passes unanimously. City Manager.
On to 9A, which is the community the Community Development Block Grant CBDG Annual Plan for FY 23-24. Staff is requesting approval of the city's FY 23-24 CBDG Annual Action Plan as presented, and authorization for the Neighborhood Services Director and/or the mayor to sign the associated grant applications and plan certificates as required and submittals to the plan to HUD via Brevard County. Boy, I'm really tired of this.
I had
If approved at this meeting, a 30-day public comment period will follow the submission.
All right, Council, any comment on that one? Call the card, please.
Kristen Lordy?
We got two that come everywhere.
Kristen Lorty, Cocoa resident, public engagement enthusiast. So I'm commenting on this item. These hearings often happen for things that are federally funded, HUD money in particular, and the CDBG block grant program is a part of that. And one of the things they require are these public hearings and public participation. And yet it rarely ever, you get very little feedback. There's typically very little feedback from the public. But one of the questions that I wonder is does the public have enough information to know that they're invited to give feedback? Has it been publicized to the public to give feedback? In what ways was it publicized? You know, and so I think that the city could could ensure that it does a good job of during the 30-day public comment period of pushing this out to the public. And in conjunction with its goal number 5, effective governance, bullet number 1, expand methods to increase and enhance two-way communications. So options that the city has, and I've seen it done, the best example that I've seen is in Orlando, where they've taken the federal funding and they've turned it into a website that looks user-friendly. They've invited comments, you know, click here and you can make a comment. I actually made comments to the county and they did adopt that, where you can now go to the county website when there's public participation. You can just click the button, you can add your participation. And the county also added the document itself, because oftentimes the document itself is buried in the board packet, which, you know, I don't have enough information myself to comment on because I didn't have time to read the board packet in time and receive it in time. But the information is sometimes very hard to access. So if it's clearly available on the city website, if it's on the city Facebook page, if there's a friendly introduction that says we are looking for your feedback, that could be very helpful. COCO also does a decent job of making cute little signs that, you know, that draw the public in. They're colorful, right? And they say, hey, we want your opinion. You have to really make it clear when we want residents' opinions on different things that we're here and we want your opinion, and to make it very easy. Look at the document, tell us what you think. And I would also encourage the city to have participation goals so that there are more people that are commenting during these public participation opportunities. So it would help to have those goals, and it would help to make the documents more accessible to the public and make sure that the public feels welcome. And I appreciated the comment that Member Stockhold said a few minutes ago about transparency. And then I would imagine that many of you support the idea of public engagement, but the practice of public engagement has to be thought through. So I encourage the city to please consider the practice of public engagement during the 30-day public comment period, and I will be on the lookout for your efforts. Thank you. Any questions?
Next card, please.
Stan Johnston.
Thank you, sir. Do I have a motion?
Move to approve the FY 23-24 Community Development Block Grant Annual Action Plan.
Second it.
I have a motion from Member Nelson, a second from Member Cole. Roll call vote.
Member Stokel?
Yes.
Member Cole?
Yes.
Member Nelson?
Yes.
Mayor Diesel?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Robinson?
Yes.
Passes unanimously. City Manager.
On to item,
I just want to confirm with Terry. Under the recommended action, we have conduct final public hearing, authorize the Neighborhood Services Director and our mayor to sign the grant application and certification forms, approve the submittal of the plan to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development for utilization of CDBG grant funding. Would you like all that in the motion? I want to.
Yeah, you can reiterate that we'll sign this certifications and get those submitted to HUD along with the plan.
So I would restate the motion with the additional language to authorize the Neighborhood Services Director or Mayor to sign the grant application certification forms and approve submittal of the plan to the HUD for the utilization of CPDE grant funding in the amount of $310,501.
Now, she just reread the motion. Does that mean we need to re-vote on it?
Yeah, she's amended the motion, and is there a
I'll
second?
accept the amendment as a second.
We have the second stand. Roll call vote again.
Member Cole?
Yes.
Member Nelson? Yes. Mayor Diesel?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Robinson?
It's a roll call vote on the CDBG grant?
Yes.
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 Yeah, she just had to
Member Stokel?
restate the
Yes.
motion more specifically. All right, City Manager again.
on to item 9B, which is 2022 to 2025 Local Housing Assistance Plan for the City and State Housing Initiative Partnership SHIP Grant Program. Approve Resolution Number 16, 2023, and approve the amendments to the Local Housing Assistance Plan for the City-State Housing Initiative Partnership Grant Program covering program years 2022 to 2025 to include additional affordable housing strategies. A conditional approval of the amendment was received by the Florida Housing Finance Corporation on 3 May 2023. A public notice was provided on 28 April 2023 to invite and encourage public participation to comment on this item.
Okay, Vice Mayor, got any comment?
Yes, a lot of money there. Tell me about, as I looked at this, great. Who's going to spend it?
We're going to do our best to spend it.
Are you going to hand it out per household, or you going to use it? What are you going to use SHIP for this time? Is it dedicated to individual home purchases, home buying? What are you
Yes.
going to use SHIP?
So currently, we have our first-time home buyer program that's funded with SHIP. That will remain funded into this year as well. We have our owner-occupied housing rehabilitation program, our emergency repair program, and then we're adding the efficiency and weatherization program to that for owner-occupied. And then we're going to add the strategy for tenant assistance for renters, for assistance with rent and utilities.
So explaining SHIP and purpose, because we used to working with only 15%. Now you got roughly $500,000. And how are you going to, won't buy but 2 homes these days, but so you're going to allocate a certain a percentage of
Yes, so there should be in your attachment the housing delivery goal charts that start on page 378.
8.
And these are Florida Housing's forms. They have us fill these out to show what programs we're going to implement in each year. So the current year, the 22-23, we've come July 1st, we'll complete that year. So as we move into 23 and 24, you'll see the emergency repair program on page 379. We have 4 strategies outlined there: the emergency repair program, the housing repair program, first-time home buyer, and the weatherization program for owner-occupied units. And then down in the tenant assistance program, you'll see earmarked for there, as well as affordable rental development. And then in the final year, because SHIP is a 3-year cycle, you'll see those same earmarks for what we will be funding in the last year of the SHIP program, which is basically all of the programs except for a rental, affordable rental development, because we'll be doing that in next year.
And, Terry, this is just a question. I know that you have these dollars to allocate, and the basic effort is to try to get the cost of the resident down. And but it's still going to be quite high for the resident to be able to qualify for. You would say a $250,000 home, you give them $50,000 that they still going to have to. That's going to still rank as a very high bill, and the population that you can serve with these SHIP dollars is still, what is it? 50% and below, or 80% and below?
So with SHIP, there are 4 categories of incomes that we can serve. With SHIP, it is a little challenging because 30% of the funds have to serve only 30% AMI households.
Right.
30% have to serve 50%. And then you also have 20% that you have to serve special needs households. So it is a little challenging to juggle the money around, but we seem to be able to do it every year. I'm not saying it's not challenging, but it is. So we encourage citizens of Titusville to apply for these programs. We can only spend the money if we have applicants.
And any special efforts are going to be on your part to make sure that the word gets out, that beyond?
Yes, sir. We're required to issue a notice of funding opportunity, which that will be coming up. I think we sent that ad to Florida today. We put it on our Facebook page, and we also put it on Neighborhood Services webpage on the city's website.
It's a great opportunity. I know that this money is not going to come, but I know it's
Yeah.
it's
And
going to be challenging to make it happen.
And I might add that we also always use our community members that are actively engaged in our neighborhood revitalization program and send the word out to them in hopes that they will help us spread the word.
Right. If I can do anything to help, let me know, because they want to make it a successful program. Help make it a successful program. Those are my questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else from council? Call the card, please.
Stan Johnston,
We're on B. Housing Assistance Plan. Thank you, sir. Motion? Motion.
Move to approve resolution number 16, 2023, and approve the amendment to the LHAP for the city's State Housing Initiative Partnership Grant Program covering the years 2022 to 2025 to include additional affordable housing strategies.
Second motion.
Motion by member Nelson, second by member Cole. Roll call vote.
Member Nelson,
Yes.
Mayor Diesel.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Robinson,
Yes.
Member Stokel. Member Cole.
Yes.
Passes unanimously. City manager.
On to 9C, which is Comprehensive Plan Amendment CPA number 1-2023, Water Supply Facilities Work Plan for 2023. This is a legislative item. The public hearing to transmit the CPA to the state. The adoption hearings are tentatively scheduled for August 2023. On 17 May 2023, the Planning and Zoning Commission, acting as your local planning agency, recommended approval of CPA 1-2023 for submittal to the state. That was approved unanimously 7-0. Florida statute requires local governments to update their water supply facilities work plan as part of their comprehensive plan within 18 months of approval of the regional water supply plan by the Water Management District. The work plan was updated by the staff and submitted to St. John's Water Management District in February 2023 for approval. Recommendations related to the St. John's Water Management District supply plan are incorporated and into the work plan is finalized for approval. Again, this is a transmittal to the state, and your public hearings will be in August.
All right, so what does that mean? What do we need to do with this? Accept it, vote on it?
Approve it.
You'll need to make a motion to approve it, to transmit it to the state.
Okay, so then our transmittal will take place when?
So immediately after tonight's meeting, we'll send it to the state for their expedited review. And once we'll receive a report back from them of any objections. If there are no objections, or if there are objections we have to address, we'll address that at your public hearings for adoption.
All right, so the state will oversee this, evaluate it. All right, call the card, please.
Stan Johnston,
Stan Johnson, registered professional engineer. I'm looking at this particular item, and it opens some doors that you need to look at. For example, it itemizes. I'm not sure why. No, is anybody here from Water Resources? I don't see anybody. But it itemizes, for example, your enhanced water treatment, for log removal for $4 million. That's projected. But more concern, of great concern, is the, are we going to end up with a bunch of moratoriums? Because we've got a $6 million gallon capacity for the well field, is the way I read it. And it says that we're going to, we're not going to make it. We're not going to make it in the future. That's the way I read it on pages 16, 17, and 18. I think you need to look at it because I've been asking this all along, repeatedly. Like, for example, we got a well field right behind IRC, United Methodist Church, that, as far as I know, it just hasn't been producing. So I don't know how we're going to make it without doing a moratorium. How are we going to grow? Because I know that years ago is that there's times that we have a peak demand of in excess of 6 million gallons. That's what I was told. And now what we've done is we've torn down 2 water towers. And we've got, and the way I read it is we might have a plant that's capable of treating 16 million gallons, but we don't have a source for the 16 million gallons, not at all. We don't have a commitment from Cocoa Water to make up the deficiency. You guys need to look at this. I don't think you understand what's going on at all. At least that's the way I'm reading it. And I've asked this question many times, the same thing I've asked for the sewer capacity. I believe that the sewer capacity right now is that when we had the Hurricane Ian, is that I believe it just went right through the water treatment plant. I believe that's why they turned off the lift station at Carroll Avenue. But they just turned it off. They turned it off and on and off and on. It was turned off and on. Although it's got $1 million, I don't, not $1 million, but it's got an emergency generator and everything there. It was being turned off and on. Somebody was doing it, remotely or something. So you've got a big problem, and you need to have some answers and answer some questions.
All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Any other cards? All right, motion.
Move to transmit CPA number 1-2023 Water Supply and Facilities Work Plan for 2023 to the state.
Motion, Member Nelson.
Second.
Second, Member Cole. Roll call vote.
Mayor Diesel?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Robinson?
Yes.
Member Stokel?
Yes.
Member Cole?
Yes.
Member Nelson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously, or I should say. City Manager.
On to item 10A, which is an annexation and small-scale comprehensive plan amendment, SSA number 11, 2022, with rezoning of Dairy Road luxury apartments. This will involve ordinance number 24, 2023, 25, 2023, and 26, 2023. The city attorney will read the ordinances for the record.
Ordinance number 24, 2023, an ordinance of the City of Titusville, Florida, amending Section 7, Chapter 63-2001, Laws of Florida, Special Acts of 1963, by annexing certain property located west of North U.S. Highway 1, having parcel ID number 21-35-29-008, to be included within the city limits, and providing for an effective date. Ordinance number 25, 2023, an ordinance of the City of Titusville, Florida, amending the Code of Ordinances by amending ordinance number 60-1988, which adopted the comprehensive plan of the City of Titusville, by amending the future land use designation for approximately 15.08 acres of land located at the northwest corner at the intersection of Dairy Road and North U.S. Highway 1, with parcel ID numbers 21-35-29-00-8 and 21-35-29-00-35 from the Neighborhood Commercial, Brevard County, and Commercial Low-Intensity Future Land Use Designation to the Medium Density Residential Future Land Use Designation, providing for severability and providing for an effective date. Ordinance number 26, 2023, an ordinance amending ordinance number 5, 1993, and 29-2016 of the City of Titusville, Florida, by amending the zoning map made a part of said ordinance by reference, by changing the zoning classification of approximately 15.08 acres of land located at the northwest corner of the intersection of Dairy Road and North US Highway 1 with parcel ID numbers 21-35-29-00-8 and 21-35-29-00-35 from the agricultural, residential, Brevard County, and community commercial zoning districts to the planned development zoning district, providing for severability and providing for an effective date.
On 17 May 2023, the Planning and Zoning Commission, acting as your local planning agency, held a public hearing and recommended the following. Approve the annexation 7-0. Vote unanimously yes. To approve the land use change, the vote was 6 yes, 1 no. The no vote was Member Faison, who voted no because he wanted to encourage more affordable housing. The motion to rezone was approved 5-2, with Member Faison voting no because he wants to encourage affordable housing, and Member Rogers voted no because he did not feel comfortable with the recreational paths and setbacks. Again, this is your first reading. Your public hearing will be at your next meeting.
There is no vote, no motion. And no, there's no vote or no motion on this one because it's the first reading. Call the card.
Stan Johnston.
Stan Johnson, registered professional engineer. I come up here and I tell you some things that are should be of some concern to you, but it appears that you're not listening at all. I just told you about what I'm reading and saying is that the city is not going to make it. I'm not sure. They keep reducing the amount of per capita of water usage and so forth, and I don't see that that's going to make it. So the projection for increase in population, I just don't see how it's going to get it. As far as, let's say, when we're talking about more infill and more multifamily zoning and so forth, and there's about 2,000 in that development. We've got thousands of units proposed. I just do not see how we're going to make it, and I don't see how this is. It appears that it is a problem that you're not listening to. I don't know how you're not listening to it. So when you bring more and more in, and I don't see that we're going to have the capacity. I think that you should ask for assurances, especially when I'm reading there. It sounds like it says that you do not have the capacity in the future. You're not going to have it. So what are we doing? I've been wrong times. There's times I've been wrong, but looks like I'm reading and it says that I don't see that we really do have capacity. Maybe they're switching numbers a little bit, but from what I've known in the past and what happened with the cities having problems with water pressure, and I just don't see how you're going to do it. So I think that somebody should be looking into it seriously, whether it's Mr. Cook or something, to explain to you, because he's not here. He wasn't here for this last issue about the CPA on water supply facilities. He's Public Works Director, but he's over the water resources. So we're having continued problems with reporting. And I say I've said closed doors with the Water Resources Department about sewage spills, not just sewage spills, but water capacity, well field capacity, and what's going on when we have hurricanes. It's I don't understand how you can see that there's no problem here. So you've got it, and I think you're not handling it properly. I would ask questions. I don't know why you're not asking questions, because it looks like they're right there. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you very much. That's the first reading. So we go on to old business, City Manager.
On to old business, which is 11A. This is Park and Open Space Draft Definitions and Standards Update. On 25 April 2023, the staff presented a report on the status of the proposed changes to parks and open space definitions and standards. At that meeting, City Council requested the staff present a draft text amendment to the land development regulations for your review and comment. So staff is recommending that you review and comment on the proposed amendments to the city's parks open space regulations and approve advisability to advertise the draft ordinances.
So council members, I'm going to refer you to the clean version. I put two versions in here. One is a strike through underlined version of the code, and the second one is a clean version, so you can see what it'll look like if you adopted what was proposed here. And that is on excuse me, I thought I had the page here.
Yeah, 663.
The clean version starts on 681. So basically what we're suggesting is what we drafted here was a complete rewrite of the one particular section that addresses open space requirements anywhere within the code. So we consolidated all the open space requirements several years ago, back in 2015, into this one section. And so this draft right here is further refining that. We've expanded the intent and purpose statements, applicability, exemptions. We've actually, one particular exemption is that if some members may recall, several years ago, we proposed a level of service standard for parks that was a little different than what we have. So if a subdivision that is being proposed or a residential development is being proposed within a quarter-mile walking distance of an existing park, it could be exempt. Open space standards on page 682 of your packet, you'll see that table, that matrix. That's actually existing with some refinements there. I've pointed out to you two parts here that are actually new. Number 2 there is single-family subdivisions, multifamily and townhomes. So there would be a requirement here of 450 square feet per dwelling unit with a new development, regardless of the zoning district. However, if that particular development was proposed in through one of our existing tools, like a planned development, it would just have to abide by that 35% open space requirement. So it's not doubling up, basically. And there's another provision in the code that addresses that issue. Number 5 is brand new, where it talks about office, commercial, retail. We're suggesting a 500 square foot development for a open space or a civic space or courtyard, or whatever that might be, for a commercial development over 1 acre. And that would apply to even our community commercial zoning districts or any other commercial. So that could be refined if you want to limit that, or maybe only apply it to larger projects. That's open for discussion. We can come back to you with different alternatives on that as well. Or if you do not believe that these two additions that we've suggested in here are appropriate or go above and beyond your recommendations or your advisability in the past, then we can just claw this back. So this is the opportunity to do that. Everything else you see here as far as the minimum open space requirements for these other development tools have not changed. On the next page, it's generally just definitions that got a difference between active and passive on page 683 of your packet, paragraphs 1, C, and D. And so it includes some descriptions and examples of what is considered to be active and what is considered to be passive. And when you read that, it'll actually give you examples of the types of open space and parks that reference back to that matrix, which is at the end of this document. So it tells you which particular park open space that's listed in that matrix would be considered as active or which one would be considered as passive. So when a developer comes in with an application with a master plan that includes that demonstrates compliance with the open space and parks requirement, for example, a planned development rezoning, master plan, 35% of it must be open space and parks. They can go through that matrix and identify, pick and choose what they want, and have to identify it on the plan. And have to label it. This is a nature area. This is a natural area. This is a playground. This is a civic area, and whatnot. So it's asking for a little bit more information about parks and open space up front. On page 684, it goes into some standards development, open space and parks development standards that would be applicable to all the development tools. So for example, under paragraph 4 there on page 684, right off the bat, you can only account up to half of your stormwater pond towards open space and parks. I'm sorry, paragraph 5A, excuse me, that's what I'm referring to, the stormwater system. Correct. That's what I suggested. I know at the last discussion there was talk about maybe increasing it or reducing it, but we're just proposing to you, we're just showing you what we came up in our original draft ordinance. That could be changed. It could be applicable to only certain types of development tools. For example, that only applies to planned development zoning. We can suggest that if that's what you would like us to restrict it to. And so then that would leave the RMU zoning district, which is Tranquility and Tugo Bay, or the urban village, which is the Titusville Destination Resort project, for example. And even the other project, we do have another property that has that same zoning too, that's undeveloped, would not have to worry about this 50% rule. So right now, the way it's drafted, it would apply to any open space requirement. Further down on that same page, walls and fences, some standards related to that, landscaping and buffers and yards. So at your last meeting, you talked about not wanting to allow someone to count a required landscape buffer towards their open space requirement. We currently allow that right now under certain development tools in the code. I would ask that maybe allow for some consideration of that, especially when it comes to an urbanized development. Depending on the tool, if you're doing a subdivision, a regular single-family subdivision in a rural area or a suburban area out in the outskirts of the city and it's not improved, you're just putting in the landscape buffers. But if you are using an urban village zoning district, which we have a large piece of property that's still available to be able to develop under that zoning right now, they would not be able to count their open space, their perimeter landscape yards as far as their open space based on what was the comments I received from last time. But that's more of an urbanized development. Now, you may believe that or say that that is still in your intent, and so we'll make that change so that open space will not include buffers, and so there won't be an exception for that. But in some circumstances, you'll see some urbanized developments like Jesse Wright's project. There were some opportunities where he could have put in some more civic space and courtyards up on the public realm, along the adjacent public street or on the perimeter of the property. And that probably could have counted towards their open space. Access management is addressed a little bit here on this page. Exclusions. These are things that should not be counted towards open space. So parking lots is an example. Additional standards on page 685, you'll see standards that are specific to each of the development types. So for example, residential development, you'll see some standards there that really only apply to. There's some exceptions to it for residential development if it's less than 2 acres. There's different specific standards that are related to cluster development and conservation subdivision design. A residential manufactured housing park has a 15% open space requirement, and so it does have some specific standards that are specifically related to that zoning district, and so on for planned development, regional mixed use, and urban village. The next page goes into some dedication, which is already in our code, but there's some additional language in here about phasing. This is new. So this is something we got from an American Planning Association.
What page is
document.
that,
What
Brett?
page?
I'm sorry, it's on page 686 of your packet. 686.
686?
Yes, sir. So phasing, if you imagine a large subdivision coming in phases, first phase must put in the park. So they're planning the park as part of that subdivision or a master plan, and that first phase is coming in. Sometimes a developer will say, well, I want to put in the parks last when the final phase comes in because I don't want to spend that much money or investment up front. Well, this is asking for that opportunity where there should be some, as phases are coming in, that there be some parks and recreation built with it. Because sometimes what you'll have is a phase 1 completed, and then the bottom drops out on the market, and now we don't have phase 2 until 10 or 20 years later. And so then we have phase 1 with subdivision with no open space. So that's the issue. That's what this is supposed to address here, this scenarios. And then finally, the matrix on page 687 of your packet. And so I won't go through this, but you can see the list of different types of parks and open space, a description of them, and the design and maintenance requirements related to it. So when a developer decides to submit a master plan through a plan development rezoning, for example, they'll need to demonstrate that 35% parks and open space, and they can pick and choose from this list here and put it on there, but they'll have to identify what they are, and they'll have to meet the standards you see here on this definition. So that gives us a little bit more leverage in negotiating with an applicant, and hopefully reduces the amount of negotiation that might have to come before you as far as parks and recreation and amenity requests. That's, I'll try to answer any questions you have about this. I'll appreciate any input or concerns you may have about this, and we'll certainly come back with any changes at a later date.
Council, Vice Mayor? Anything you want to say?
Yeah.
Yeah, please.
Brad, one of the things that, that I have several questions. One is that how restrictive is this going to be on small developments that don't have a lot of land to deal with? How restricted are we going to be able to be flexible in those areas? I mean, with that particular type of situation.
So at the beginning of this ordinance, we put in some applicability statements. It's on page 681.
681. Okay.
So the state right here and under section 30-162, applicability. So you have C, paragraph C. The provisions of this section do not apply to a proposed infill residential subdivision that is 2 acres or less and is located in the South Street target area. So that's one exception. Another one is a proposed residential subdivision in an R zoning, which is any residential zoning district, located within a quarter-mile walking distance from an existing park by means of an existing planned or pedestrian path. So what that does is, if someone is taking a 2-acre piece of property and is going to put in a subdivision, which is pretty small, and probably not feasible when it really comes to a subdivisions, but it could be for a multifamily development. If that property is outside of that quarter-acre range, that distance from a park, they may have to put in some kind of civic space or something. And so then you go to the next table on page 682. And so for each unit, so on a 2-acre piece of property, and let's say the density is 10 units per acre, they'll be allowed to have 20 residential units on that property. And so that right here says 450 square feet per dwelling unit. So they might have some difficulty being able to do that in that particular scenario. So they might have to be able to get a variance for it, or maybe we'll have to put in some other tool in here to accommodate those kind of small developments. But generally, when you see a multifamily development putting in open space, it's usually much larger. So that's what this is really intended to do. So if we need to make some flexibility on some small ones, we can certainly do that. As far as commercial, on the same page, page 682, number 5 there, that's brand new. Office commercial retail, and we're suggesting a 500 square foot civic space or courtyard or park, whatever that might be. It's up to the developer to decide what that's going to be. And should be, mostly, I would imagine, probably be an active space. So that'd be a courtyard or a plaza. And so that 500 square feet actually comes from our downtown mixed-use code. We currently have that requirement in our downtown zoning code. So the way that works right now is we have a commercial development in the downtown, and they have to put in some kind of civic space. And it has to be 500 square feet. And a lot of times properties that might be too small to be able to meet that or do that, we'll ask them put in some kind of pocket park along the street if it's going to be a small development. And there's a process in the downtown to allow them to go through the DRC, the Development Review Committee, to get waivers and justify it through that administrative process. So that's something that probably could be incorporated in here too, because the way this is designed right now is this would apply to commercial developments along our commercial corridors. Garden Street, US 1, Cheney, and that kind of go along with the presentation you heard this morning with the overlay option that Eliza was showing to you from Canaan and Kimberly Horn. So it's the idea of trying to create some kind of, having some tool to create some kind of parks, civic space, open space, pocket parks along your commercial corridors. That was the intent here.
Okay, and I saw where, you know, and as far as drain ponds and so forth, did we change, or did I not see that you changed it, that it used to be, or when we were in the, kind of in a mess like that, you can't use but so much of a drain pond for open space?
So some of the tools.
I saw the 50%, okay, what do we explain, maybe some changes that we may see in that?
So I'm going to refer you back to page 670 of your packet. So this is looking at the strike-through version.
670, okay, gotcha.
So you look at that top paragraph there. It says paragraph 3. It's stricken through. That's the open space requirement for the planned development zoning. And it says there you can use a private water body and stormwater retention or detention areas that are designed to be used as passive recreation, as long as you include a fountain, benches, or walkways as examples. So what we're proposing is more stringent than what you see here. So what this is currently stated in the code right now, what's stricken through here, that's current language. When we work with a property owner using a planned development tool, they'll have a 5-acre stormwater pond, and they'll put a fountain in it, and they'll say, well, I meet the intent. And so then we go back and ask them, no, please put in something else to make it more usable, because it's supposed to be common area to meet the intent. And so then we'll negotiate with them on a trail or a bench somewhere. And so sometimes we won't get very far with it, and then they'll bring it before you because they have that right to do that. And then you're negotiating with them on that. So the idea of just saying right off the bat that only half your stormwater ponds can count towards your open space was to try and eliminate some of that, but still ask for some recreational amenities, because the rest of the code comes into play as far as what kind of parks and open space are supposed to be.
It looked like, Brad, did some of the things that I was concerned about it last time we did this, you have addressed them in some of, as you have crossed out, lined out, and things, and made it better. With that 3 o'clock morning, had we had this correction or this standard in the front of us at that particular time, would it made things better?
So you're talking about the tranquility development.
Yes.
I'm
just using that as an example, yes.
I understand. The staff had a lot of difficulty because of the language in the code was very open-ended. Now, when I came to you and I said I thought there were 3 different there's 3 different sections of the code that talk about open space, and I thought that what they provided to us was inconsistent with the code at the time.
Right.
Mainly because of the exhibits that were provided to us previously to demonstrate compliance. And that's how I looked at that to see the previous approvals to kind of guide us in how we interpret the code now. Now, there was still a debate as to what they can count and what they can't and what the code really says. So the council made a decision with that process. I think if we had this language in here, it would have helped. I can't say it would have eliminated the negotiation.
But it would have made the right, and that's the goal. We can't make a perfect document because things are going to change, situations are going to change, needs are going to change. But we want something that we can set a standard with. And I think that as I peruse through this would give you a better, more of a standard to make your decisions by.
It would have helped.
All right, and those are my questions.
Yeah, well, it has to come from you, and quite honestly, I felt the same way, but the more I heard Vice Mayor talk and the more I heard you respond, we can get paralysis with analysis real quick when it comes to wording. And I'm like, even when we talked the other day, I'm like, well, we can't go through this line item word by word to make sure that this word meets that word. I mean, sometimes you go through the Bible and is it thee or thou? I mean, that's kind of where we're at here. I think that ultimately it's got to be a document that you feel works best for you and your department. I'm not working that document. I mean, up here once in a while we have to get, does this count as open space or not? That's important. But I think when we try to reword everything, we have to be careful, and I'd lean more on you for that than us. So that being said, Member Nelson.
We had a long discussion Monday morning about this. So, and I was sort of picky. So one of the things that I did, and I used the strike-through version, is in 3163, took out the language, the following minimum open space requirements are not cumulative and may overlap with combined. And so by taking that out, I think Brad, you saw that. It turns into parks open space shall be reserved for any development in the zoning districts or areas that set forth in 30-2 required open space. That we would use the most stringent parks and open space minimum. Just trying to make sure that when these guys have to talk to developers, the developers know what we're asking for without question, and these guys aren't having to do the negotiations. And then the other thing we talked about was counting 50% of the buffer toward open space, not 100%, but 50%, because the idea was to make sure that we had something that maybe wasn't on a major highway, something more toward the interior for recreation. And then the last thing we talked about, I think, was we have a number of small lots on Garden Street, probably South Street, and do we want to say these requirements apply to the bigger areas and not the smaller areas, and how do we define that? So I think Brad was going to look at Garden Street and some of the areas and maybe come up with an idea of what would be a good size.
Yes.
Did I say anything that anybody wants to change or?
No, my concern is that this seems like the more we talk, the more we change, the more we look, the more we can change more later.
Yeah, that's true.
And I just think that it's an infinite discussion of what wording to use. And I think there's going to be unique situations come along that it's like, wow, I wish we hadn't done that. We might want to change that. Again, I lean on you to tell me if this is working or not. And, and there's some cases we want to have some say on what open area is.
I do have one question for the council. Do you want to see this open space and park requirement to be a little more stringent because you want to see more open space and park, or do you want to allow for more flexibility?
Flexibility always works for me. And that's kind of what I've been saying up here the whole time. And I don't want to get too much involved with, you need to do this line here, that line there. That's not what I do.
Flexibility is what we really want to have in this, so you can have the flexibility of making the decisions you need to make to help the developer get the required documents into you.
But I think at the same time, we need to be able to be clear enough so that developers, when they come in, they know what we expect.
Absolutely. And since he deals with the developers every day, I'm still going to lean on him to tell me. And if he doesn't get it right, well.
I agree.
I'm just not a micromanager when it comes to departments like that. I just would rather you tell me this is how it works best for me. And if there's confusion, we can kind of say, well, yeah, let's think about that. But I just don't think we can possibly go line by line and get it all sorted out. It's got to be what works best for the planners. Member Stokel.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think clarity is what I would like to see. And I feel like you attempted to do that by, I mean, I see the chart on here that you crossed out, which was a big concern of mine last time we were here, is like, okay, how do we define it? Because you're, especially in the RMU, it's here 15% and then it's here 10, and it became very confusing. So I would go for clarity. My other thing in regards to the flexibility, I like how you did the matrix of the different areas. And I think I mentioned this maybe in our briefing. I would like a little bit of flexibility if someone does want to do something that's maybe not covered here. Like if they wanted to do a volleyball court, like where would that fall under? Is that a playground? Is that just in case? So there, again, going back to the clarity portion. I do appreciate the open space. I think we mentioned that. I mentioned that in my briefing, just with the Searstown Mall project, where I felt like they were literally just trying to nickel and dime every little piece for open space. And I would like that to be clear. I don't want them to be able to do that. But for those that are trying to do something nice and a benefit, giving them that flexibility to be able to move things around and present a good product, I would like to see.
Vice Mayor, you back up?
Yes, yeah. I caution that flexibility is great, but not flexibility to the point that everyone gets whatever they want. You understand what I'm saying? We want flexibility, but we have to have a standard in that in the midst of all of that we can keep some type of uniformity. You don't want to use the word uniformity, but uniformity in making our decisions about the product that we're trying to ensure that we receive. Okay, that's what.
And when I say flexibility, and I agree with that, by the way, there certainly has to be some hard and fast rules. But at the same time, I think flexibility sometimes is in our way. Can we be a little flexible here, kind of like to have the open area here or the buffer here? I don't know what it would be, but something that our hands aren't tied when we're trying to help somebody. All right, so where are we at with this now? I see no more.
Yeah, what we're asking for at this point would be to approve advisability to advertise the draft ordinance and move forward. And I believe Mr. Parrish has the input of council, but that would be the next step.
As of today, we do this? All right, let me call a card.
One card at Stan Johnston.
Too late.
Stan Johnston, professional engineer. It's almost too late, but you'd think I'm not really interested in that very much. But let me give an example of what's going on here. I've really asked all of you to go and visit the site at the corner of Whispering Hills Road and Elizabeth Avenue. It's a 3-acre site. It's 28 townhomes. It's being constructed right now. So about 6 months ago, or maybe 8 months ago or so, they went ahead and cleared it. They had a clearing plan and everything. They left, counting there was, I don't know, well over, I don't know whether there was 100, 200 trees there or something, but ended up with about 3 oak trees. And then they took 2 of the oak trees down. And about less than a month ago, they took the last oak tree down. So I think they should now call it SNG instead of oaks, called SNJ telephone pole. And if you look at the history of what happened to that particular project, by the way, it's a 3-acre project with 28 townhomes. My wife and I used to own 2 of those acres, and we sold it years ago. But it's very sad is that what the engineer and owner and whatever went through the process with the city of Titusville, and they got a variance for landscape buffers. They got a variance for setbacks. They got all kinds of variances and so forth. And by golly, this is what you ended up with as far as, I just said trees, but let me tell you what they took out. They put in a huge retention pond there, about 3.5 foot deep. And I see no sidewalks available to go from the street to the townhomes. It's so cramped. It's unbelievably cramped. You won't see it until you build it, but if you look at the plans, you'll see it. And so they can't go. You can't go from one townhouse to another townhouse, no sidewalks. I don't know how they did it. How did they get that kind of approved? In other words, if you're handicapped and you're from the street, you can't get from the street on Elizabeth Avenue, you can't get to your house on the sidewalk. I don't know how they did that. So it's an interesting thing to see because as far as open space goes, that's what we're talking about here, really. It seems like I'm not on topic, but I am on topic if you'd see it, because I don't know, there's hardly any open space at all. I mean, it's almost a retention pond, and that's it. And there's no, I don't know of any parks around there. It's just going to be, it reminds me of, is it going to become a slum land? Slums, because, we think about some cities that built these nice big high rises, and then I see them being demolished on YouTube. One after another, demolish these big high rises. So planners don't seem to always have the right ideas. I mean, we got to have planners, but in this particular case, I would like you to look at what's happened to that particular project. I consider it rape of the land. And I don't see any, if there's any open space, it's just a teeny bit. Thank you.
Hey, tell me again, Elizabeth Avenue, what was that? What was the other corner?
Pardon?
What was the other street?
Whispering Hills Road and Elizabeth Avenue. It's the one I wanted you to visit numerous times, and I also wanted.
Spring Hills.
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
Okay, gotcha.
And it was lots of trees. Thank you.
Tomorrow. Next card.
Kristen Lordy.
I knew that because I saw her come up. She's got a computer now. We're in trouble.
Good evening, Kristen Lorty, Cocoa resident, supporter of informed citizen engagement. And I wanted to comment on this item to say how helpful it is to have the documentation. So I have my laptop with me and I'm opened it up and I'm able to follow along, and it's just very informative. It's helpful to see the city red lines and what you all are talking about. And the reason why I'm highlighting this is because I imagine I may not be the only resident that might like to be this well informed. And so I like to point out opportunities that could help the public. So one is that some city meetings, they scroll through and they show this. Now, you guys do a lot of presentations, in your presentation section, so somebody does operate the projector. But when you're going through documents like this, it can be very helpful to have them on the screen for the people who are watching, because I literally am one of those people who's out there in cyberspace watching the city meetings. And, normally I would have this so I could do this on my laptop, but someone else might be interested enough to watch it but want to follow along. So if you added that to your protocol, I think that could help other residents. I also remember that in my comments about not having access to the board packets online on the city website, there is a website that does post them, and it's the Talk of Titusville. The Talk of Titusville regularly posts the city board packet and also posts the 5:30 meeting. So if there are residents that are watching this and are looking for the packet and have not written to the clerk in advance to get the city packet, you can go to the Talk of Titusville. Now, one day we hope that the city will actually post these, so you can just go to the city website like we do in other municipalities and the county in Brevard. But in the meantime, I just really like to point out easy ways that the city can make an adjustment and that citizens can have access to the documentation that is being reviewed. And for this particular agenda item, I just think it's a really interesting agenda item. I'm very supportive of parks and open space. I'm supportive of both flexibility and having some rules and making sure that we get this right. I'm not informed enough to make more precise comments on the actual policy itself, but I really like the discussion. And what occurred to me is that I wish that we had a robust review and some kind of protocol for the governing documents of HOAs. HOAs are now becoming the rule and the law of the land. And once those governing documents are in place, That is it. You are never going to get an HOA community to vote for half or 2/3 in order to change those governing documents. Anything that the cities can do in advance and the councils can do in advance to improve those governing documents at the onset, because the developers, they get to go away. They're moving on. But you guys and us, the residents, are stuck with those documents indefinitely. So if you can do a process like this for those documents, I think it could really, really help residents and help for the future of our communities.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Her comments are definitely correct. We need to vote for it. Anyway, where were we? Any other cards? Yes, sir. All right, so we need a motion of some sort. Good luck, Member Nelson.
We need a motion suggesting or approving.
I don't know what you're approving. I'm
I
just
don't
gonna,
know.
I'm just gonna vote.
Yeah, we need approval of advisability to advertise the draft ordinance based on what the dialogue was today.
What Manager Larice said. That's my motion.
I was going to ask, do you want us to bring this back to you with changes before you advertise it, or just go ahead and I can make changes to a draft ordinance for advertisement. So then you'll see it the next time when it's going to be a public hearing or a first reading.
Member Stokel.
And then we'll still have time to make some changes at the first reading if need be.
The changes are going to be more stringent. What's advertised would have to re-advertise it. That's the disadvantage of that.
It'd be better to have him bring it back to us. That work?
I can do that if you want to give me a time certain. I can probably bring it to you in a few months.
In a few moments?
Months.
Oh, in a few months? I was going to say, whoa.
Let's take a recess.
A few moments.
Brad
What
is
time is it?
No.
Yeah, if you would, I'd like to have it brought back for us to read it one last time.
I think at some point, though, we have to say we're done. I mean, because we could have you come back and forth for the next 2 years and find another change. I'm just saying, I agree with the changes. I agree with, the things we're trying to do here. But I think when you say, well, I can come back later, well, you could say that every time you come over.
I certainly could. Not that I want to. But, I mean, I can make some tweaks to what we have drafted here based on what I heard. And you make your decision if, we can go ahead and advertise it, and you'll see it in your first reading.
Perfect.
Okay.
If obviously there's significant changes you want to see, we'll just have to re-advertise it, like any other
Okay.
ordinance.
That works.
All right, so did we get a motion in there?
We got a motion, Sarah.
I got a second from Member Stokel. Roll call vote.
What is the motion?
It says just
Approve the advertisement? Approve
Directing
the
Brad-
advisement to the advertisement?
to draft an ordinance based on our
Draft an
feedback.
ordinance.
Yep.
Okay, very good.
Vice Mayor Robinson,
Yeah.
Member Stokel,
Yes.
Member Cole,
Yes.
Member Nelson,
Yes.
Mayor
Speak up.
Diesel.
yes. Of course, you had to be the first one to vote on it. City Manager.
We'll need to extend the meeting, sir.
I'm sorry?
We'll need to extend the meeting.
Or we vote not to, then what?
Yeah. How about
All right, let me
we,
have a motion. I don't know.
30 minutes?
30 minutes.
30 minutes.
I got a motion for 30
a
minutes from
motion.
Member Nelson,
Second.
second from Member Cole. All those in favor say yes.
Talk fast.
Yes. No, I was just going to say my birthday is tomorrow, and we better
That's
not be here
right.
till
Oh, it happened
midnight.
for me.
No, I will not be here for my birthday.
I was.
So
It
do
was
not-
pretty cool. Y'all say
Yep.
if you were here,
No,
we'll
do
sing.
not extend it.
If we
to-
stay here until midnight, we
we will
sing.
not. That will
Let
not
me
be a good
confirm,
birthday
I did
present.
I did get a,
Yeah.
all those in favor say yes. Opposed? All right, we got till 11 o'clock. We're getting a little slap happy here. We gotta go.
We're on to 12A, which is the update of the Economic Development Strategic Plan. In 2017, the city adopted the Economic Strategic Plan with a 10-year horizon and detailed implementation of list of action items. Strategies include building a strong downtown, improving aesthetics along the commercial corridors, supporting key industries, especially the space industry and recreational opportunities. Approximately half of the strategies are now complete or ongoing. Staff is recommending that council discuss the alternatives of developing a new plan, update the current plan, or maintain the status quo of the current plan.
Okay, presentation or just questions?
You had your presentation earlier. Should you
Okay.
have any
We
questions?
want to see it again, please.
No.
Member Nelson.
We have 30 minutes to go, so. I liked it. I liked the presentation. I'm sort of thinking maybe just update the current plan because it talks to about some things that we've already done. One of the things that I was sort of concerned about, or not concerned about, but it talked about having activities in the downtown area. So I think I talked to Mr. Larice about how we can get the merchants together to promote some of those activities. And maybe the theater doing outdoor concerts, and maybe if you can get them moving to have 2 or 3 activities during the year plus a playhouse, that might help get people downtown.
Agree. Good thoughts. Member Stokel.
Yep. Just to reiterate kind of what I said in the presentation meeting, I would like to see an update as well with a focus on just with the trajectory of where I think our city's going is mapping out and being very strategic about our industrial areas and our commercial areas and making sure there's a cohesive vision for the city of Titusville with all the development coming, that these are really strong areas that we want to market and hopefully bring in some strong businesses that would support the development.
Again, reiterate, I too am update. I think that that's nothing we have to reinvent. I just think some updates are appropriate, especially along the way Member Nelson noted. Anybody else at this time? Call the card.
There's one card, Stan Johnston.
Why I say call the card? Call the card.
Thank you. Stan Johnston, registered professional engineer, and I have a little story to share with you that you may be interested in. And that is that if you remember, there was a presentation at Titusville High School. The septic tank people came and showing, well, we want to clean the river and everything. I don't think you were there.
I think I was at the auditorium.
You were somewhere else.
I don't know.
Or, no, you were. So anyhow, I went there and I said, well, what's going to happen? It's the first time I've been in that building. It was very nice. And there was a table there with City of Titusville, different tables, and one was Rachel Mueller. You know, she was with sustainability. All right, so I'm going to tell you something that happened. And she's gone, so I can tell this now. So I went to her, and she's smiling her face, and she's a wonderful person. Anyways, but when I first met her, when she was first hired, I shared with her some problems the city had. And I gave her some things, gave her documents, or ORB pages and so forth like that. And tell her that we're not sustainable, we're not resilient. I mean, I've even signed it down in writing and sealed it and everything. We're not sustainable in many ideas like our stormwater and our overpumping of our wells, just all kinds of things. We're not. So I went to her and I said, how you doing with this sustainability issue? And she didn't have much to say. And I said to you, how do you sleep at night? She put her head down and she said, not well. No, she left soon thereafter. But what happened was about 2 weeks later, I was meeting with her, and she was as happy as can be. So you might notice on what she's done on the sustainability and that reliability, that one that she went ahead and completed, had photographs of those comments that were put in there that were not addressed in the study. In other words, they're in there in the appendix. She got you. She got you. I think you understand what I'm saying is that you ignored these things, but they're in there. They're in the appendix. Those comments. She got you. She left.
she can smile on her face and saying, I didn't have to lay down to this guy. Thank you.
We have a motion, please.
So, okay.
She puts cards in after we're done. I don't know. That's how they do it in Cocoa.
Kristen Lartier, I didn't know that I was going to comment on this item, but I want to say I did comment in the earlier meeting about how I hope that there's a public participation opportunity when you update this plan. I support the updating of the plan. I thought that, I'm fine with that. The thing is that I wonder about is, similar to what Ms. Tripolo said earlier, is that we have all these plans and how do they relate to each other? We've got a sustainability plan, we've got an economic development plan, we have a strategic plan, and the economic development plan is actually a strategic economic plan. So how does it all converge? You know, that's a question. Or is someone can stumble across one plan and get one view of Titusville, but they're not really getting a holistic view. So how do all the plans talk to each other is a question I have, and I hope that it gets answered. Because if you're just looking with the economic lens, are you capturing the other items that matter, you know, if you're just studying that particular plan? So I don't know that I have an answer, but I hope that Titusville does, and I'm open to hearing what that is. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, Member Nelson.
Okay. So I would say move to accept the status report of 2017 Economic Strategic Plan and update it.
I'll second that
Does
motion.
that work?
Yeah, I think that worked.
Yeah.
I have a motion and I have a second. Roll call vote.
Member Stokel?
Yes.
Member Cole?
Yes.
Member Nelson? Yes. Mayor Diesel?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Robinson?
Yes.
Passes unanimously. City Manager.
12B is Verona Village C sketch plat. Verona Village C is a proposed 536-lot, single-family subdivision on approximately 184.86 acres located west of Verona Village D subdivision and south of Verona Village B subdivision. On 17 May 2023, the Planning and Zoning Commission recommended approval of Verona Village sketch plat C and to request that the applicant provide traffic calming examples to the City Council to illustrate that the traffic calming can be done. That approval was 6-1 with one no vote. Member Faison voted no due to the minimum of 40-foot lots, and his concern was with on-street parking hazards. Staff recommends approval of sketch plat for Verona Village C, and Mr. Parrish is here to answer any questions that you may have. It does meet all the requirements of the code.
I see no council members. Member Stokel.
Sorry, I do have a question. Just what is our role in approving a sketch plat if they do meet all the criteria? So that's where I get a little confused.
I'm going to bring up the code real quick just to see exactly what it says, but you do have the opportunity to review the layout of a subdivision that's being proposed. So the next step after this is the preliminary plat and site plan. So the engineering drawing is going to come at this next stage after this. So you really do get a chance to see or make comment on the layout, number of residential units, the access points, what they're preserving. Those are generally the things that you see as a more high-level kind of overview. If you believe that there's a need to put in some, or recommend or ask for them to make some changes because you see issues there, this is the opportunity to do that, or to impose certain conditions that you see. So I'm just going to bring up what the plan development, I'm sorry, the procedures for a sketch plat for you. Excuse me. Okay. So so here's what it says in section 34-151C. After consideration of the administrator's recommendations, the Planning and Zoning Commission may recommend approval with conditions of denial of the sketch plat based upon the review criteria contained in this code regulations, which we stated in the cover sheet there. The Planning and Zoning Commission shall forward its findings to the council upon who upon receipt of said findings shall either approve with conditions, or deny the sketch plat. Approval of the sketch plat by the City Council authorizes the applicant to proceed with the site plans and preliminary plats. So they have to go through the step to get to the next one. Approval of the sketch plat with conditions authorizes the applicant to proceed with the site. So it's really an opportunity for you to see this layout, and if you have any questions, or if you believe that there's some questions that have not been answered through our review, this is the opportunity to maybe ask us to fill in that gap, or maybe propose something that a change to this if possible. They'll have 1 year to submit their preliminary plat and site plan from the date of the approval of this.
Perfect. Member Nelson.
Brad, I can't remember this, and I didn't write it down, but there was one road that was pretty much a straightaway that looked like a really great road for teenage boys and some teenage girls to fly down, and maybe some older people. Not me.
I'm just listening.
It
might fly.
And I can't remember the name of the road.
Willow Creek.
Was it Willow Creek? Okay. And so my thought was, we need some way to calm that traffic down.
Are you talking about Willow Creek, or the main artery through the whole development, or this particular subdivision?
It was the one that was
straight road.
just in Section D.
Yeah.
No, I know how to find 95.
I know what you're talking about, though.
Yeah,
It was a straight one.
it was a straight one. So my thought was, it needed to have some bends in it to slow that traffic down.
I mean, that is a traffic calming technique. So,
It needed a way to calm that traffic down. So I guess I should say, you figure out how to calm the traffic down, but it needs to be calmed down in that area.
so let's just say, let's say, throw that out. If you decide to propose a condition, you're asking the engineer for them to submit to the next step, they have to include in their site plan and their preliminary plat a proposal for how they're going to calm traffic. So they'll have to
Correct.
propose a particular technique. If I would be more specific as to what that is. So if you're looking for a little more widening of the road to help slow the traffic, or the road, so doesn't look so straight,
Right.
that is something you probably could ask them to do. And so they'll have to propose that as part of their site plan review. And we'll review it to make sure it
That's
yeah,
what
meets
we're
engineering
asking for.
standards.
Okay. So yes, that would be one of the things I would request, is that we have some,
So let me just throw this out too. So the basis of that is because of some information that's been provided to you. So this Planning and Zoning Commission made a recommendation about this. The applicant's here probably to answer it as well. I don't recall information provided at that meeting to help them make that recommendation or make that concern. I think it's just the fact that they see the road very straight in some
Yeah.
local roads, so that there's an assumption about that, which may be true. I'm not sure what else the applicants may be proposing besides winding it. They could be putting other techniques in there that they don't see on this plan.
well, I was gonna say, here I'm looking at Herman's computer and it doesn't
Miss-
look straight.
Ms. Nelson, I can't hear you.
When did you get you on the microphone?
Okay, so I'm looking at Herman's computer and it doesn't look straight.
We're looking at the Verona sketch
You're
plat,
in
correct?
B.
This is,
Yeah, I'm looking at the
Right, but we need section D.
Let's stop
should
right
be
now and have the applicant come forward.
Yeah.
Let's hear what we've got. Go ahead, your name and address for the record.
You got it. Brian Ashby with Kimley Horn and Associates, 189 South Orange Avenue, Orlando, Florida. At Planning Commission, it was requested that we come to this meeting prepared to discuss potential traffic calming elements that we could propose within Verona Village C. They haven't been used in Village D or Village B, but we did take a look at it was that one stretch on Temecula Circle, I think is the one that you all were referring to as the far south end of the property that is very straight.
85. Okay, so
A couple of the options that are typically used in residential neighborhoods. We do have a lot of, we'll call it nonlinear roads throughout the development. Along that south side, it does kind of turn towards the far east. But in this development, what we were planning on to propose here, and we'd work with staff during the engineering of the development, is either speed tables, which generally, I don't want to speak for all fire departments, but they generally prefer those over to like a speed hump, only because they're easier to traverse for larger vehicles. So that was something we were proposing. It also provides, if you do it at like a mid-block crossing, if we have any mid-block crossings, it provides pedestrian awareness. So there's striping on the ground that goes with a speed table that visually allows the drivers to be able to see it, be aware of it. There's signage that goes along with that as well to alert the drivers that that is something that is coming up to them as well. We also will have your standard stop bars and stop signs at these intersections as well that will stop traffic before they get to these long stretches. But we are certainly willing to work with staff to implement traffic calming devices such as speed tables in here, which we see done all over the place. City of Apopka, we actually helped them with some of their traffic calming measures. Kimley Horn did over the past couple of years, and those are items that we're implementing in other subdivisions right now, and the developer is willing to work with staff to locate those appropriately where needed within this development.
okay. Explain speed tables to me.
Sure, and I have a handout if I'm allowed to. Okay.
Yeah.
So here you go. So this is actually, speaking to the mic, this is actually, I didn't create this. This is from the Institution of Transportation Engineers, ITE. This is straight from their manual. So this is kind of a fact sheet. What speed tables are. Not like your traditional speed bump in like a public parking lot. But this is a little more pedestrian friendly, more visually appealing. So that was a traffic calming measure that is not intrusive for emergency vehicles that we were proposing. It would keep the right-of-way width the same within there as well. It wouldn't bottleneck down the street in any locations, but again, it would provide, I mean, you got to slow down for those things. So, but it would also, like I said, the big thing when you're talking traffic calming, and this is one thing we worked with the City of Apopka on, when you're looking at traffic calming devices, one of the biggest issues that come with traffic calming is emergency vehicles and how they traverse through those and their response times. And speed humps actually provide almost no impact to, or not speed bumps, speed tables provide almost no impact on emergency access. And so that's why what we thought it would be good to propose them here.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Any other questions, Vice Mayor?
No,
Okay.
that got it for me.
Okay, call the card.
Aaron Faison,
Thanks, sir.
Thank you.
Aaron Person, oh, good Lord. It's late, guys. Aaron Faison, all right, 530 Loxley Court. I was in high school. I was told I talked too much. I was that guy in class, always running off at the mouth, but lately it seems to be paying off a little bit, so not such a bad thing. I want to come here today and tell you guys why I decided to vote no on this particular project. All right, so Member Garrett had a great idea, or he came up with a fantastic thing I hadn't thought of, is that if the average home has 2.5 residents and they have 2 cars if they have a guest, they'll be parking on the street. With a 40-foot lot width, that's going to have a lot of people parking on the street if people come and visit. And once you have people parking on both sides of the street, that becomes a safety hazard for the community. So we need to have larger lots to allow more cars to get those cars off the street. The other thing that I had a problem with is this community is going to be 500 some odd lots. And again, now I'm going to go to affordable housing. How many of those homes would be for affordable housing? One of the reasons why when speaking with another property, I asked, why are you guys requesting smaller lots? It was because they were going to make it more affordable. So I went out to Verona this week myself last Friday and asked, what is the minimum price of your smallest home? The answer was $376,000 before you put the lot in. $376,000 before the lot, before upgrades. Well, that's not affordable. So we have a 40-foot lot, 530 some odd homes, none of them are affordable. Then you put on that, you add in all the cars, you add into the streets, and now you have a safety hazard. So I would like the city of Titusville, and as a member of the Planning and Zoning Board, to start saying no. Start saying no to some of these developments that are coming to our town, unless they give us something back in the way of affordable homes. Verona will have 1,000 homes being built. 1,000 homes are projected being built, and not one will be affordable. The only people that can change that are you guys. So I'm here to ask you, as these developers come to Titusville and are asking for allowances, can we get something back in return in the way of affordable homes? That's all I'm asking. So if you guys want to say yes to this plot, this sketch plot, keep in mind that there'll be 2 cars in every house, possibly 3 when the children start to drive. They'll be in the streets, and these emergency vehicles can't get down the street. So I say no. I say widen the lots, lengthen the driveways, get these cars off the street, and make these streets safe for all of us. Thank you.
Member Stokel?
Yeah, I forgot about that issue. I was concerned about the cars in the street as well. Brad, can you clarify what the requirements are? And not just for this project in particular, just in general as we are getting more. I feel like we have narrowed the street more to create more green space. But with that, I feel like, to Aaron's point, that I've noticed that the newer developments have smaller driveways. Sometimes they're going off into the sidewalk, and then there are cars in the street. So I would just like to know the rules on that in general.
So typically the sidewalk will be in the inside of the right of way, and with the outside of that sidewalk is bordering, the property line. So the property line will start, the private property line will start at the outside of that sidewalk.
Mm-hmm.
The driveway that is required, or each single-family home is supposed to have 2 parking spaces, and generally enough space for 2 vehicles to park in that driveway or in that garage without actually spilling out into the sidewalk, because technically that sidewalk is supposed to have a clear path. So that's the requirement. So we'd have a 2-car requirement for a single-family home right now.
Yeah.
The way that's addressed is with that parking, that driveway, and then we are supposed to have enough space for a vehicle to be able to park without having to back in or over the sidewalk.
Yeah, and I know that's the intent. I feel like just sometimes they don't pull all the way up to the garage, or they're needing some room, and so it doesn't. And then, so that's, okay, that's one area. And then what about for the roads? Have we?
The right-of-way is supposed to be 50 feet wide. The road itself is supposed to be about 26 feet, and that includes 24 feet of pavement and curb and gutter on the other side. Now, I haven't looked. The applicant can probably give you more specifics as to how they're actually meeting those requirements, but that's a typical standard for a local road in our city.
Okay.
He could probably answer better for that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I can speak to that. We're meeting the city's right-of-way standards, 50-foot right-of-way, 24 feet of asphalt pavement, 2 feet of curb and gutter on both sides, your 7-foot landscape strip or utility strip on the outside of that, and then 5-foot sidewalks up to the edge of the right-of-way. So it's your pretty typical standard right-of-way that you see pretty much everywhere. Regarding parking, these will be the first homes in Verona that and it's not all 40s. It's a mix of 40s and 50s, and the PUD does allow 40-foot wide lots. It's the same driveway width between a 40-foot wide and a 50-foot wide lot. The driveway width doesn't change. The lot size changes and the house size shrinks. But all these homes will have 2-car garages. They all will be able to have 2 cars in every parking, in every driveway as well. So to kind of answer that, regarding kind of giving in what we're talking about as far as developers coming in, I did want to stress one thing. If you haven't been out to Verona, I'd strongly encourage you to go out and visit the development. I'm extremely proud to have been able to work on this one, only because if I were to move into a new subdivision, I would love the way this one's laid out. There are hardly any homes that back up to other homes. They all back up to conservation, wetlands, or stormwater ponds. Part of the PUD required the developer to retain in perpetuity 224 acres of open space, the majority of which is wetland conservation area, where they've put it into a conservation easement. Right now, and this is the 3rd phase of the development, there's still another phase that's supposed to come. So we're supposed to meet 224 for the entire project. We're at about 212 acres of open space right now. At this point, with another estimated of about 50 more acres of open space in the next phase is what we're planning on. So we're planning on exceeding what was even required in the PUD. It's over 1/3 of the entire development being preserved. So I feel like they've been pretty good stewards of obviously complying with the PUD, maintaining that open space, and honestly exceeding it. So, but yeah, if there's any more questions.
I see none.
I have one.
I see one.
Do you plan to provide any space for overflow parking? Because I know sometimes to avoid on-street parking, HOAs will require no on-street parking.
Mm-hmm.
So will you have any place for someone, if they have guests or if they have a party or something of that nature, to have a place for overflow parking?
Sure. We have in Village D right now, which was the first phase of the Verona PUD development. There is a really nice amenity center that's being built right now that has non-standard it's guest parking, that kind of area. That's what that's intended for if there's birthday parties, whatever, being held at the clubhouse area, the amenity area where there's the pool, the gym, open space. Yes, there's some additional parking there.
All right, now I see no more questions. Calling the cards?
Stan Johnston,
I'm worried about the birthday party. Can I pass on that?
Yes, thank you.
He gets me sometimes, he really does. All right, any other cards?
Yes, sir.
All right, motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the sketch plan for Verona Village.
Second.
C.
I've got a motion for Member Cole, a second for Member Nelson. Roll call vote.
Member Cole,
Yes.
Member Nelson,
Yes.
Mayor Diesel.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Robinson,
Yes.
Member Stokel.
Yes.
Passes unanimously. City Manager.
Yes, sir, we need to extend the meeting.
What if we don't? We're gonna hang around here till midnight for a party.
Yeah, I move we extend the meeting to midnight.
How about 11:15?
All right, let's try 11:15.
Okay, 11:15, second.
Okay, I've got a motion and a second for 11:15. All in favor, say yes.
Yes.
Opposed? 11:15.
On to item 12C, which is the Restore the Indian River Lagoon Inflow Project Letter of Support. The Titusville Environmental Commission recommended the City Council support the $4.9 million in state budget for the University of Central Florida's Restore the Indian River Lagoon Inflow Project. And there's a letter for the mayor's signature enclosed in your packet.
Obviously, we think this is a very important one. It says Indian River Lagoon on it. We take that very important. And for anyone who says we don't listen to TEC or anybody else, this is on here because they recommended it, advised it, and we want to make sure we get it done. So with that said, is there anything else from council?
What are we actually doing? We just.
City manager, you want to go ahead and explain that?
We're providing a letter of support to the governor to provide funding for a University of Central Florida project that pumps water, salt water from the ocean and other sources into the Indian River Lagoon.
And gets the
We
salinization.
just a letter saying that we support them applying for the grant?
Good.
Yes.
The money's actually in the budget. The quest is to make sure that the governor doesn't strike it out. So if this letter will help us or help this project go forward so he doesn't strike it out from the budget as proposed. So there's money allocated already by the
Money was
legislature for
allocated
this.
For this particular purpose? Is that-
Correct.
Okay.
Like I said, it was advised by our own TEC, so I think it's a solid move for us to make with this letter. Member
move.
Cole. Oh, don't move yet. I got
We
call
don't move
cards.
yet.
We have card?
Stan Johnston.
You better say, this is a good idea.
Stan Johnson, I'm proposing amendment of that. I think you can save at least $1 million by supporting this amendment, is that I want you to support this river. And what you can do by saving $1 million is when you get rid of our city manager.
Stop.
Is that, yeah, let me finish. I'm almost finished. Think about the birthday party. Okay, is that don't give him a golden parachute. In other words, that's about at least $1 million right there, and his pension. But just get rid of him without that, and he'll save the river very
Right,
much.
thank you very
Okay,
much.
thank you. All these false
All
reports.
right, any other card? All right, let's have a motion.
Move to authorize the mayor to sign a letter of support for the $4.9 million in the state budget for the University of Central Florida's Restore Indian River Lagoon Inflow Project.
Second motion.
I have a motion from Member Nelson, a second from Member Cole. Roll call vote.
Member Nelson.
Yes.
Mayor Diesel.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Robinson.
Yes.
Member Stokel.
Yes.
Member Cole.
Yes.
Passes unanimously. Petitions and requests from the public. I think everybody's had a petition and request from the public. I know we have. So we move on. Police officer might still have something to say. No, he's done. All right, so we move on to mayor's report and council reports. I'm going to go first real quick. It's graduation week seems to equate to rainy week about every year, but nothing can put out the flame and excitement of a graduation. I was at astronauts graduation last night. It rained the whole time, but I want to tell you, it didn't put out any of the excitement. The parents were excited, the kids were excited, and I really love the way astronaut, when it's over, they play their alma mater, and then they hit the fireworks. They have fireworks, just like Christmas fireworks at the hospital. It's like, wow. So that was pretty exciting. Thursday, I go to Titusville High's graduation. And one of the last things we did before I left was the city student awards that we do. That is such a great day. They're so excited. The parents are so excited. The school district really applauds our effort there that we are the only city that does a student city award day or night. And I'm excited about that. So pretty much I just like to say, when we look at those little kids up to some high school kids at our award thing, and then you go to the graduations, you really feel like our future is in good hands. And that just makes me feel that way every year. Of course, I've done this a while. We'll go this way first. Member Nelson.
I told Mr. Maurice this. I got a call from Molly Carter, and her husband is probably in his late 70s. He has Alzheimer's, and he was just having a fit because there was yard trash on the edge of their property, and he became absolutely obsessed with it, pacing up and down, looking at it, pacing around it. And Molly called Public Works, and they came right over and picked up the trash. And she said he went from being agitated to just
That's awesome.
come again.
That's awesome.
So I just want to say, they did such a great job.
Kevin,
Yeah.
Public Works do a great job. They really do.
So that's it.
Thank you for bringing that up. Member Cole?
Yeah, a number of us attended the police, Hall of Fame function on Friday night, which was an excellent function and very touching. So salute to
What kind of
the
Hall of Fame?
police. Hall
Oh,
of Fame.
police. Okay.
Yeah, Police Hall of Fame, yeah. And then on a happier note, I think we should extend till 12 so we can sing happy birthday.
We could sing anyway.
We could sing it anyway.
We could sing
No,
anyway.
we will.
Okay.
Okay.
Member Cole, well, I'm going to go ahead and tell you something anyway, because city manager was there both times. We spoke Saturday morning at y'all's place, and then we spoke this morning at Lucida, and she heard me say it then. I say all the time, I said, we showed the city council on the PowerPoint, and I always say, Member Stokel makes this average about 30 years less because she's on council. I follow that up, I said, but then Member Cole got elected and went back up 40 years.
I don't need no
Oh, Vice Mayor.
I haven't done very much.
Microphone, sir.
Microphone, buddy. There you go.
I haven't done very much.
Well, that's not true.
Yeah.
By he said hadn't done very much, let me go ahead and say perfect time. I'm glad you said that. Because while I was out on my trip to Europe, Vice Mayor covered me very well. Ran the 27-minute meeting. But outside of that, he went to the, what do you go to? What is it called? The Mayor's Breakfast. That's a big deal. I did that once. And that's a big deal. And for him to represent us there, and I'm very, very confident when I ask him to go represent. And I've had several people come at our event this morning, sir, tell me that you did a good job there. So it doesn't matter what it is, whatever I have for you to cover, you're top notch. I appreciate you.
You're mighty welcome. The mayor's breakfast. I went to a full day workshop for affordable housing, which was excellent. Which we learned a lot. Both Scott and I and one of staff, one of Terry's co-workers over there, was there and helping put that in. Learned a lot about affordable housing, even some of the projects that are trying to get into here. Brad had a staff member there as well. Very, very informative. What else? I've done so much and just.
Both of you went to the economic thing this morning.
Yeah, we went to the economic thing. I was with Herman out there at the memorial service for and Scott and I, Jolene. Everywhere I go, Jolene is always there.
I miss you. You
Yeah, she's there with us. But it's been a lot of things. I think that I've been to the TPO since the last meeting as well, talking about housing and all of that. So I've been quite busy over the last 3 weeks, keeping up. But Scott kept me on target, staff kept me on target, and
Did very well.
and I filled in. That's right. I filled in for Sarah while she was gone out at. Food was good. Well, we Indian Atlantic, I think it was.
Yeah, I think so.
And it was, but it has been good. And I had on clean clothes and shine shoes at all of the activities. I did take a shower at all the activities. But it's always a wonderful thing to represent the city. And I never try to steal anyone's thunder. At the League of Cities, I told them that I was there representing Sarah and the mayor. I didn't
They're
want
both
them.
out of town.
Yeah.
They were both out of town, so I didn't get 2 plates though.
Oh, no.
We do that later.
And when I represent the mayor, I always give him the recognition for not being, in his stead, not trying to be there for him. And that's very important to me.
Because you are who you are.
And for the city.
It's true.
That's it.
Thank you. All right, that's adjourns the meeting right now, doesn't it?
Yep.
Oh, wait, there's one more. Never mind. There's one more.
No, I actually don't have much either. I was just going to say that, yeah, Joe filled in. I've heard great things about the mayor's breakfast. Thanks for filling in Space Coast League of Cities while I was away as well. It just makes me feel very grateful to be on this council and like hearing all the good things of what everyone's doing out and about. And you mentioned astronauts graduation. Curtis's son in the back running our show today. His son Matthew graduated as well. So I wanted to say congrats to him.
Yeah, I saw him there. I saw him there, actually.
Yep.
Of course, he was under a tent while I was out getting wet.
That's right. Yes. So, nope.
You good?
Oh, look, Curtis makes. Yep. There you go, Curtis.
Curtis?
What?
City manager.
Oh, and Richard's son graduated as well. I almost
saw
forgot.
Richard under a tent, too.
Yes. So, congrats.
Congratulations, Richard. Curtis, congratulations to you both. I thought it was a great ceremony. Love the fireworks. City manager.
I've got one action item and two information items. The first action item is the appointment to the Bicycle Pedestrian Technical Advisory Committee. Staff is recommending council nominate our Economic Development Coordinator, Nicholas Gow, to be our city's representative.
Do we just nominate or we have to vote on that?
You'll need to vote.
Well, that means, Stan, you don't want to talk about him, do you? Pass. Thank you, sir. We're getting ready for our ice cream and cake here.
Right.
All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Opposed?
I'll make the motion for the official record
Okay, yeah, thank you.
for Wanda.
Yeah, I do have a motion, I
Yes.
do have a second, and we have the vote. Well, I don't remember what the name you said, but that's the guy.
Nicholas Gow, sorry.
There you go.
Perfect.
The information items, and as mentioned earlier in the meeting, social media or local media incorrectly reported the city of Titusville has a sister city relationship that was actually not true. It was terminated in 2002. The next is the Brownfield Lunch and Learn, scheduled for the 25th of May, 2023, and then begins our budget process in August 17th.
Thank you. Let's go ahead and extend 5 minutes, just because. Member Nelson?
Extend it 5 more minutes.
Well, let's say till 20 after, so
To 20 after.
20 after. I have a
Talk
second on that.
fast.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say yes. Yes. Opposed? Okay, we go to 11:20. City Attorney.
Thank you, Mayor. I've put a memo at each of your seats. This is the agenda item that we approved earlier. As you're aware, the city has pending litigation involving the City of Titusville versus Speak Up Titusville, Inc. And I'm seeking your advice regarding this litigation. So I'm requesting to have an executive session with council to discuss strategy sessions related to litigation expenditures in that matter. So I'm asking council to vote to approve having the executive session. And of course, we'd like to discuss a date and time that would be convenient. One of the potential dates could be as early as May 31st, June 9th, June 12th, or June 19th.
You said May 31st?
That's a Wednesday.
June 9th would be better for me just because I'm off on Fridays, if possible.
Mayor D, so I have 2 cards, just.
Okay. Let's look at a date first. I kind of like it sooner the better on the issue. June 9th seems like that's a while
Early.
away from.
Can we do early morning, potentially, or
that
later?
particular day I can do any time by the looks of it.
That day, I am in Seattle.
I have to have 7 days
If you got anything to do on the 19th?
Wait, so not on the 31st is what Jolen's
She
saying?
can't-
I'm leaving on
when
June 6th
June 6th.
and coming back that Sunday. So somebody said June 9th, and I'm like,
No. What about, okay, what about the 31st, May 31st?
Is it 31st year?
No, I
Yeah.
should be here.
I say 31st
said
works for me.
Afternoon of May 31st.
Yeah.
Do late afternoon?
Wednesday.
Okay, so I'll leave work
Next
or
week.
like,
Oh, 5, what, yeah, what.
okay.
We
okay.
haven't decided.
May 31st around 5 or 5:30? Good?
I would say.
5? 5? Ish?
We'll make it work.
We said 5?
5 o'clock, May 31st.
Yeah.
All right, hold on.
Yep.
I'm sure we'll get a notification of that. Okay, call the card before we vote.
You said 5.
Well, I don't know. Did you read the judgment from the judge?
I did.
Multi-pages? 5 pages of discussion that I bothered to print out, and I think Marlis went over most of the salient points. I don't know why you're sitting up here dicking about what time you're going to meet, about a secret meeting to plan your strategy. What strategy is left? I'm a little upset because it's very late and my dear mother is probably home eating up all the ice cream that we had. We did everything that was supposed to be done. Ms. Nelson said that our language was vague. The judge said it wasn't. In many different ways, he said it was not vague, that it was also up to the city, the government officials, to send the verbiage to the county elections. So, I mean, to get it on the ballot. So if it wasn't correct, it's not our fault. It was your fault. But it was correct. The judge said there was nothing vague about it. Because he says the first matter raised by the city is that the statement of the ballot summary does not clearly disclose the primary blah, blah, blah. He says, in addition, the court finds it does not and did not mislead the public. You know, so why are you going to spend any more money? At a couple of city council meetings this year, $50,000 was put to outside legal expenses, and then another $35,000 was voted. So that makes $85,000. Now, I don't know just how many different cases y'all are carrying against that you need outside legal counsel and spending $85,000 of our tax money. And I'm going to tell you, as a citizen who's a member of Speak Up Titusville, who's only wanting to save the damn Indian River Lagoon, we've spent $20,300 on a lawyer, and you know where it's coming out of? My pocket. And you know where the $85,000 is coming from? It's coming out of my pocket. Amen. And it's just really disgusting to me that you would wait, Attorney Broom, to the very end of a very long meeting to bring this up and want to have a secret meeting so y'all can discuss your strategy. What more strategy is there? You're going to go against all the voters, all the efforts of your citizens to just want to be able to hold polluters accountable and try to save the river. And now you're going to talk about appealing, maybe? Why don't you honor and respect the voters and just not have that meeting? Go home.
No, I just wanted to clarify from my perspective, just to address that. So council, we're allowed to meet 2 times in private, well, outside the sunshine. It's through union negotiations or in the case of a lawsuit. And so given what has happened, it's not, I don't feel comfortable just because I don't know how the other council members feel to have that discussion right now because of this, because it could be potentially be, it wouldn't be good potentially. And so I just want to make it clear during this shade, what they call a shade meeting, that is what we will discuss, is based on now what we know and the amount of money that's been spent, what we plan to do. And I don't know who will get voted, what kind of strategy will get the majority of votes essentially. And that's what we have to determine. And then I'm sure that will come out. So just know that we hear you and this is the process.
Can I ask you, what will come out? the conclusion of this meeting that you're going to have, and you're allowed to have 2 meetings on a particular legal case? Is that what you're saying?
There's only 2 times we're allowed to like meet. It was what they call shade. It's during union negotiations, but it's because when we can't, and when in the case of a lawsuit, which again, you can't really. It depends. So that's kind of where. I just want to clarify my perspective as to I know how it looks, but I just want to clarify
It looks really bad. The optics are really, really bad for this town now, with all the things that you try to do for the lagoon. This is a killer for you.
Next card.
Last card is Dan Johnston.
Start it up.
You can put out a card, Kristen. Listen, they're not on my card is the one that I had for anything new, and so this is something new, and that's why I tried to stop it at the beginning of the meeting. I just didn't want you guys to do this, and this is something, in other words, you're going to vote to do something that's out of the sunshine, which is legally exempt by the sunshine rule. But so the thing is that you had about 5 people speak. It was Mike Myjack and both the Kleins and Tony and several other people spoke. And Maureen wrote something very long and so forth. So they're not pleased with what this is about, the right to clean water and what you guys are doing. So we're watching what you're going to do, and I know that Tom Perez is going to be listening to this on video, and it's going to say, my golly, you guys cheated us again and again and again and again. That's what you got. So you guys are doing dirty politics, and that's what it is, dirty politics. And you have no business doing this. So good luck. You do what you want to do, and I'm not going to say, but I'm opposed to what you're doing. So you go ahead and pollute the river. You go ahead and spray women and children and babies with pollution and piss and poop. Go ahead and do it. Go ahead and do it, because I'm not for what you don't. I don't have your back. You have each other's backs, and good luck for you. You're going to hell. Thank you. Bye.
Next card.
Kristen Lordy.
Kristen Lorty, Cocoa resident, supporter of the Titusville right to clean water. And I hear you that you have the right. So you have the right, you legally have the right to have a shade meeting. I hadn't had it called a shade meeting. It's interesting because I actually have started a newsletter called Sunshine and Shade, which you guys have been copied on my first version of it. And I highlight things that I think are just shade that shouldn't be happening in our county. But I get it. You have the right to do that. That doesn't mean that you have to. There's nothing in the Florida statutes that says that attorney-client privilege means that you have to meet outside of the sunshine. You could have this meeting if you wanted to. You could still have it. You can meet with the attorney. You can discuss all your strategies, the various ways you can go about this, and you could do it in the sunshine. There is no requirement that you have to have a shade meeting. So you're choosing to have a shade meeting. You're about to vote to have a shade meeting, but you clearly don't have the support to have it. And you have 16,000 voters who care about this issue enough to vote on it, and you're still going to have a shade meeting. So I don't support it. I get it that it's legal, and after the summary judgment that you got and all of the verbiage that was in it showing that the citizens have the right to do what they do, why do you have to have a strategy session that's outside of the public? And I would really commend any of you to vote no, to say, I'm not supporting a shade session, I'm supporting a sunshine session, because people care about this issue, and when you all vote no against it, we'll all see it because people are watching. So I oppose it. I ask you to please have a sunshine meeting. You're free to meet with the lawyers, have a special meeting on the same day. Just allow the people who care about it to attend and watch it. That's the request. Thank you.
Yeah, go ahead.
So
Before we do anything else, I think we
Okay.
need to extend the time again to make this vote official.
10 minutes?
We hope we don't need 10 minutes. Hope we need 5 or less.
Well, I could say 5.
Go 5.
Go 5.
All right.
Second.
For motion and second, all those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Opposed? 5 minutes. Go.
So, Richard, the shade meeting is, we have a court reporter. And that court reporter's minutes or transcript of the session are available at what point?
Conclusion of the litigation.
Okay.
And we're asking for the meeting to involve myself, our litigation counsel, the council members, and the city manager.
Okay.
And
To
we
make
won't
a
be voting.
decision.
It's a strategy session regarding to litigation expenditures. We won't be doing final votes. It's your chance to talk to your attorneys.
Okay. And I do want to point something out, and I know what Judge Holcomb's ruling was, but during the voting, the last election, I actually had a couple of attorneys call me and ask me what it meant. So I know Judge Holcomb is saying that was very clear, everybody understood it. One of those people that called me was a judge and had no idea what it meant. So I don't think the issues were as clear as what everybody says. And I think we do need to have a discussion with the litigation attorney, however it turns out. May turn out good, may turn out bad. He may turn around and say, don't do it. Don't know. So, at any rate, thank you.
Anything else down there?
Just clarify a question.
Oh, I'm sorry, Member Stokel, I didn't see you.
So you said during our meeting, it will just be discussion, there's no vote. So what would happen, so say we do come to a consensus or whatnot, on what to do, where does that happen? During a public meeting, we will have that? Okay.
So whatever is said coming up, there will be a public vote. And how do we determine when we vote?
Depending on what comes out of that meeting?
Right, depending on the advice we get and where we need to head. Then
Okay.
we'll follow the proper procedures after that. So just so you know, if you haven't been involved, we will begin at a public meeting on May 31st, which will be noticed. We'll come here as a public meeting. We will then go to the executive session, recess this meeting, go to the executive session, have the executive session. We will return back to the public meeting and then close the public meeting.
Oh, I think this might be my first time
I don't
doing this.
remember doing anything like
I don't remember doing it. Okay.
It's in, yeah, yes, sir.
Okay.
And
So-
we will have a court reporter there.
Okay. So we will,
There won't be anything else on the agenda.
so the
agenda
mayor
be-
will start the meeting, we'll,
Here,
The statute requires that I first seek your advice and recommendation to
Okay.
have the executive session, which I'm seeking now. We will notice this for a public meeting on May 31st. We will come to a public meeting. After the public meeting begins, we will then recess to the executive
what
session.
will we say at the public meeting?
That you'll announce that you are going to recess to your executive session.
So
and come back with an answer that
No,
same
no,
time?
you just come back and to the public. That's just the process by statute.
Okay, so when you come back, we can't, we can't vote.
you're gonna say
No, you
nothing.
come back, we'll conclude the meeting. If there's more action to take, we would do that at another public meeting. That would be noticed.
Could it be possible that we come out of that meeting and say, let's go back to the public meeting and vote? Or is that just not going to
Yeah, that's what I
I
was
don't
gonna
want to
wonder.
presuppose that. Because it wouldn't be on the agenda at that point because we don't know what we're doing yet.
So there's no real reason for a public to show up unless they have is there public comment during that time?
No, we're just gonna,
Okay, so it's just for them to know how long we
we're gonna let
recess
you know
for?
when it's posted, we will meet up here to start a public meeting before we recess to the
Okay.
executive
Well, you
session.
guide us, because I don't know how that works. Anything else? Meeting adjourned. Happy birthday to you.
Mayor, y'all didn't,
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Sarah. Happy birthday to you.
Mayor,
How old are you?
the council didn't have a motion and a vote yet on my executive session, so.
Vote on that.
So we haven't adjourned. I'm asking for a motion to approve the executive.
Let's take a roll call vote on that one.
This is for executive session for
There
May
you go, Sarah, you messed
31st
me
at
up.
5 o'clock.
I think we actually need a motion too. We just discussed a date, but there was no motion.
Okay. we have a motion
All right, let's go ahead and have the motion on the,
for the 31st
for the 31st
at
meeting.
5 o'clock for an
At 5
executive
o'clock.
session.
Member Nelson made the motion.
Yep.
Member Cole made
Second.
the second. Roll call vote.
Mayor Diesel?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Robinson? Member Sokol?
Yes.
Member Cole?
Yes.
Member Nelson?
Hey, Stan, you gotta have fun.